After finding out that heroes who defeat the Demon King still have to work hard, Jirei runs away because he just wants to relax, but later he starts adventuring again with the girls he had previously saved. The main character's name is Jirei Laro, and he wants to be a hero. He dreams of holding a shining holy sword, defeating demons, taking down the demon lord, marrying the kingdom's princess, and finally becoming the king to live a happy life. That's what he used to dream about when he was little. But now, that's all in the past. Someone knocks on Jirei's door. A girl asks if he can join her party. Jirei is surprised, and the girl is smiling happily at him. He stares at her for a moment, then closes the door, saying he does not want to join. The girl is shocked and starts hitting the door. Jirei gets annoyed by the noise. He opens the door again and asks what she wants, warning her that if she does not quiet down, he will report her to the knights. The girl says she is not trying to sell anything or recruit him into a religious group. Jirei asks what she wants, then tries to close the door again, but the girl pushes it open and introduces herself. Her name is Retinoa Innocent, and she says her close friends call her Reiti. While trying to stop the door from closing, she accidentally breaks it. Jirei asks if she will pay him back for breaking it. Retinoa says she will pay him back and even has something better to offer. She tells him to join the attack hero's party. She promises him a better place to live and says that cute girls will follow if he joins. She says the benefits are amazing. Jirei finds her suspicious but remembers hearing about the attack hero. If someone is chosen by a holy sword, a holy mark appears somewhere on their body and they become a hero. The attack hero was chosen by the holy sword Gran Vergu, and her name is Retinoa Innocent. This generation has produced a lot of heroes, enough to go into the double digits. Jirei remembers hearing about a new hero with black hair, which is rare. The misunderstanding about black hair is annoying to him. Retinoa smiles at Jirei, hoping he will accept, but Jirei asks her why someone like her would invite someone like him. He wonders if she has the wrong person. He pulls out his adventurer card from his shirt and shows her that he is a D-rank adventurer. But Retinoa says she has the right person. She asks if he really does not remember her. Jirei is confused. Retinoa moves her hair around, trying to jog his memory. Finally, Jirei remembers. 5 years ago, when he was overhunting great bears, he saved her from an attack. He pauses, thinking about what he said back then. Retinoa says she looked up to him ever since and wanted to become a hero. She still remembers what he said before he left. Retinoa repeats his words, how he told her not to cry because only weaklings cry. If she cannot hold it in, she should become a hero. If she becomes a hero, she will not be weak anymore and will not need to cry. She should make her dreams come true, and to become a hero himself, he would laugh instead of crying. Jirei yells at her to stop talking about his dark and cringy past. He tells her to forget it all and shakes her by the shoulders. But Retinoa says she thinks what he said was great. She tells him that when she saw him in town, she thought it was fate. She recognized his face right away. Even back then, he had those cloudy eyes. Jirei tells her that since she is a hero, she does not need someone like him in her party and asks why she wants him. Retinoa says that being in a party with him has always been her goal. Jirei is surprised. She asks for his answer, but he says again that he will not join. Retinoa smiles, and Jirei thinks it is over, but she says she did not hear him. Jirei yells that she clearly did. He keeps refusing, but she keeps pretending not to hear. She keeps bugging him to join. After a long time, Jirei finally gives in and says yes. Retinoa gets happy, but Jirei says it will only be for a little while. She says 50 years is fine. Jirei asks if she knows what a little while means. He says he will join until her first achievement, and Retinoa agrees. She says he should stay in the party until the demon lord is defeated and the world is saved. She says she is happy to have him in the party. Jirei is shocked, but her face is so happy that he cannot say anything. He asks what the party is called. Retinoa says they should name it the Black-Haired Hero because Jirei has black hair. Jirei tells her he will leave an application form at the guild and asks if she can come another day. She agrees and leaves, saying she will come back soon. After she leaves, Jirei says it is time to run away. He thinks she must be joking about defeating the demon lord. He really did want to become a hero once. To do that, he drank a lot of bad-tasting potions to boost his magic power. He kept improving both his magic and sword skills. He went on adventures that nearly got him killed. He spent 10 years eliminating demons. He waited for the holy mark to appear on his body. Once that happened, he would finally become a hero. He kept waiting. He never really admired heroes. He just wanted to become king and live a good life. His plan was simple: become a hero, beat the demon lord, get crowned king, and live every day doing nothing while everyone else worked for him. But one day, while eating in a tavern, he overheard people talking. They said heroes have it rough. They fight demons every day without proper rest. Someone else said that it was thanks to the heroes and knights that they enjoy peace. Another person said he once wanted to be a hero but heard that even kings stay just as busy, so nothing really changes. Someone laughed and said there is no way someone who drinks and fools around with women during the day would ever become a hero. After hearing that, Jirei gave up on the idea. He thought about all the time and effort he spent and how useless it was. Then he decided to just earn enough to live and spend his time however he wanted. Jirei runs away to the central town in the Universia Kingdom, Hiroyusville, thinking there are so many people here that Retinoa will never find him. As he looks around, he notices there are way more people than usual and wonders if some kind of event is going on. Out of nowhere, someone bumps into him hard. The person quickly apologizes and asks if he is okay. Jirei also apologizes, saying he was careless and probably walked into her by mistake. He notices her hair is white, which is rare, but then again, he has black hair, and that's not common either. She apologizes again and runs off. As she leaves, Jirei spots something on the ground that looks like a necklace with a gem in the center. He picks it up and decides he'll drop it off at the knight's office after he's done shopping. When he walks into a store, he hears people shouting and making a lot of noise. Someone yells that Princess Rafine has been spotted nearby. Jirei figures out that today must be the one day each month when the fourth princess of the country is allowed to walk around town. She seems really popular, but Jirei heads back to his room and decides that the princess has nothing to do with him. He lies down on his bed and thinks about how nice it feels. After a month of doing nothing, he checks his money bag and sees that it's empty. All he has left is 500 yen, which is really bad. He won't even have enough to pay for his room tonight. He decides to take on a request and heads to the Adventurer Guild. There, he finds a job escorting a client and protecting them from monsters and bandits. The reward is 250,000 yen, which seems like a great deal. He notices a carriage will be prepared for the trip and figures it'll take 5 days to reach Ital. After that, he can relax again. He wonders why the client's name isn't listed, but the quest doesn't have a rank requirement and the reward is solid, so he decides to go for it. He brings the request to the secretary. He then heads to the meeting spot to meet the others who will be helping with the job. When he arrives, he sees Retinoa among them. He freezes, but she turns around, notices him, and smiles. She says it's been a while and mentions that he never turned in his application at the guild, so she brought one for him to sign. Jirei asks why she's in the capital and starts realizing that his plan to relax and take it easy might not be so simple after all. Retinoa says they also have business in Edel, which is why they accepted this request. She insists that it must be fate and hands Jirei the application form, asking him to join her party. Jirei disagrees and says it is not fate and that he still does not want to join. One of Retinoa's friends asks if he is the one she has been talking about. Both of them stare at Jirei, while Retinoa claims that he is really strong. Jirei realizes the two girls must have already been working with Retinoa before taking this request, so they have probably been friends for a while now. One of the girls doubts his strength and checks him out, saying he does not seem strong. Retinoa admits it may look that way, pointing out his dull eyes, lack of aura, and lazy attitude, but still says he is powerful. Jirei wonders if she is just making fun of him. One of her friends asks for his name. Retinoa is shocked because she does not know it either. They ask why she never learned his name. Jirei introduces himself and says that his hobby and specialty is sleeping. Retinoa reintroduces herself as the attack hero and shares that she likes sweet snacks but hates vegetables, which might explain her short height. One of her friends is named Eve Dulcus, who stays quiet, and the other is Lena Antetman, an A-rank mage who is part of Retinoa's party. Jirei is surprised to hear an A-rank adventurer is in her group and thinks she must be really strong. He considers asking something about Lena's last name, but holds back. In the past, he beat up someone with the same name, red hair, and elf ears. That person was part of a hot-blooded family of assassins. Jirei thinks it would be a hassle if Lina turns out to be troublesome too, so he decides to keep his distance. Retinoa then says they should settle things by majority vote to decide if their master, Jirei, should join the party. Jirei gets annoyed and asks who she is calling master, telling her to stop. Lina and Eve say they do not mind either way. Retinoa happily declares that with 3 against 1, it is settled. Jirei points out that Eve said she does not care, which is not the same as wanting him to join. Retinoa insists Eve does want him to join, and even pulls down Eve's hood, saying she just has an emotionless face. She says they should let Eve decide for real. Jirei is certain someone like Eve, who sees him as a D rank with gloomy eyes, would never want him to join. But Eve just says it is fine either way and walks off, clearly annoyed. Jirei feels bad for upsetting her, but Lina tells him that she is always like that and not to worry. Jirei looks around and realizes the client has not shown up yet. Then someone suddenly pushes him aside. The person greets Retinoa and says it has been a while, introducing himself as Kane Stoltz, a B-rank adventurer. He claims it is fate that they are meeting here, saying that high-status people like him and Retinoa are connected by destiny. Jirei wonders if Kane knows Retinoa personally, but her face shows she has no clue who he is. Kane turns to Jirei and says he has been curious for a while now, asking why a D-rank adventurer like Jirei is here with them. Jirei replies that he accepted the request, but Kane says that is not what he meant. Kane, who is the 3rd son of the Stoltz family, says he will explain in simple terms so someone lower than him can understand. He questions why Jirei is on a quest meant for C and B ranks. Jirei admits the Ital escort mission may be hard for someone of his rank, but points out that the quest paper clearly said rank is not important. Kane accuses Jirei of being the kind of low-rank adventurer who leeches off others and tries to earn easy money while the rest do the real work. He says he hates people like that. Kane pulls out his coin pouch, throws it on the ground, and tells Jirei to take it. Other adventurers nearby start to watch the scene. Retinoa looks like she wants to step in, but Jirei stops her. Kane tells Jirei that after picking up the money, he should leave the quest, since he is useless. He claims low-rank adventurers are just trash. Jirei says he might be someone who wants money and maybe even acts like trash. But there are D-rank adventurers who are smarter about medicinal herbs or monster dissection than anyone else. Some donate all their money to orphanages. Jirei says none of those people are trash. Kane looks stunned. Kane says it does not matter what trash says, they are still trash, and tells Jirei to pick up the money and go. Jirei feels angry but crouches down and starts picking it up anyway, saying that his wallet is empty. As he picks up the coins, he says he does not need the money, but someone like Kane definitely does. Kane laughs and says that, as the 3rd son of the Stoltz family, the money he threw is nothing to him. Jirei responds that Kane must need the money since he is not even eligible to become head of his own family. Jirei tosses the money back at Kane, suggesting he use it to buy some tea cakes and suck up to the client. He mocks Kane for getting to B rank thanks to his family, sarcastically calling him a great adventurer. Kane gets furious, draws his sword, and tries to strike Jirei. Right before Kane's sword can hit him, a mysterious person suddenly speaks, telling them to calm down. The blade stops. The person tells them both to stay quiet and instructs Kane to lower his weapon. The mysterious woman tells them not to say a word and to put down the sword. Kane's body moves on its own, and his sword drops to the ground. Jirei realizes that she's using word magic, which is extremely powerful and can't be learned without talent. The woman has black hair like Jirei, but is using a ring of transformation to hide her true appearance, and Jirei wonders who she really is. She says she'll give them a chance to explain themselves and uses her word magic so Kane can speak. Kane yells at her to lift the magic and demands if she knows who he is, claiming to be the 3rd son of the Stoltz family. Before he can finish, she says that she's the one who put in the escort request to Ital, and that her name is Fina. Fina says she was told the Stoltz family would send someone useful, but she must have misheard because Kane doesn't seem useful at all. Kane is shocked. Fina says she won't cancel the contract this time because of the Stoltz family's reputation, but warns him that if it happens again, she'll report him. Kane looks scared. Then Fina turns to Jirei and says it's his turn to explain. Jirei asks why he should, but Fina says that even though Kane drew his sword, Jirei made things worse by provoking him. She says she has more to talk about with him and tells him to ride in the same carriage as her. Jirei is surprised, and Reiti gets excited, saying that her master is getting close to the client. Jirei says it's not exciting and just means more lectures. The group gets ready to head to Ital, and Jirei joins Fina in the carriage. He introduces himself and speaks formally, but Fina tells him to drop the honorifics and just call her Fina. She says she doesn't want to lecture him, just ask some questions. She asks if he knows anyone from his hometown or friend group who has black hair and wears a mask. Jirei says no, and that he was the only one with black hair in his hometown. Fina looks disappointed, and Jirei thinks she's interested in him because of his hair. He mentions hearing about the black-haired hero chosen in Ital, and Fina suddenly stands. She says he's right, and that she's sure it's him this time. She looks excited and says she's finally going to meet her fated person. Then she notices Jirei staring at her, gets embarrassed, and sits down again. Jirei figures out that she used the escort request to go meet the black-haired hero. Fina admits it, but says she's not sure if it's really the same person. When he asks why the quest paper didn't have the client's name, Fina says she couldn't reveal her social standing, and that the name she gave them isn't her real name. She apologizes. Jirei says it's fine, and looks through the curtain at the carriage driver. He tells her that as long as the driver is there, they'll be safe. Fina is surprised he noticed her. Jirei says she's very skilled, and if she alone was enough for protection, then hiring adventurers means Fina didn't want the driver to fight because doing so would reveal her identity. Fina says he's right, but insists it's not that she doesn't trust him. She says she heard Jirei is a D-rank adventurer, but he doesn't act like one. Jirei says he's just good at observing people and asks about the kind of person Fina is looking for. Fina becomes excited and talks about the person she's searching for. She says it's a precious memory and normally wouldn't talk about it, but since Jirei has black hair, she'll make an exception. Jirei says she's too close, but she keeps talking. She says that when she was 6 years old, she met a black-haired person who saved her like a prince from a fantasy story. She even received her ring of transformation from him, and he promised to marry her. She talks for 3 hours about how cool he is and how he said he would become a hero. Jirei nods, but doesn't really listen. Fina asks if he's even paying attention and says she has high expectations for the black-haired hero. Then her stomach growls and she becomes embarrassed. She apologizes, saying she talked too much. She was planning to stop and set up camp later, but Jirei remembers he still has snacks from before. He pulls them from his item box and offers them to her. Fina is shocked by his use of spatial magic and asks how he can use it. Jirei says he didn't know it was rare and just learned it on his own. Fina looks at him with pity. She sees the snacks and is amazed. They're charted snacks that always sell out quickly. Jirei says someone sends them to him regularly to thank him. He doesn't like sweets, but they keep sending them anyway, and Fina envies him. Jirei gives her the snacks and tells her to eat them since her stomach made noise. Outside the carriage window, Reddy is watching and wants snacks too. Jirei offers them, and Fina says they should all take a break. Reddy eats the snacks happily, and Jirei shares them with Eve, Lena, and the other adventurers. They thank him. Jirei asks Kane if he wants one, but Kane tells him to be quiet and looks grumpy. Jirei figures Kane is still mad, but puts a snack next to him anyway and says he can toss it if he doesn't want it, and to let him know what he thinks if he eats it. Kane wonders why Jirei is being nice to someone like him after everything and acts like he already forgave him. At night, while the party camps out, an adventurer named Wed wakes up Jirei and tells him it is time to switch shifts and keep watch. Jirei gets up, still feeling sleepy, and says he forgot he had the late night shift. Because he listened to Fina's stories in the carriage, she gave him a high-class dinner as thanks, and it was so good that he slept really well. Wed tells him not to let his guard down, even if it is late, and mentions something about an angel. Jirei asks what he means, and Wed says he only managed to control himself because he has a wife, then tells Jirei to be careful and walks off. Jirei wonders what that was about and sees Fina keeping watch near the camp. Fina greets him, and Jirei asks what she is doing there. She pouts and asks why she cannot be there, which makes Jirei panic and try to explain. Fina laughs and says she wanted to try standing guard since she does not get to go outside much, and this is a good experience for her. She asks if it is okay. Jirei figures out Wed was talking about Fina and tells her that if monsters appear, things will get dangerous. Fina says she looks weak, but she is actually strong. Jirei says she can stay and thinks that going along with a client's idea is also part of being an adventurer, and he cannot say much because of his rank. He asks if her guard knows she is there. Fina freezes and says her guard is understanding, so she would not mind, but Jirei knows she snuck out without permission. Fina says he can leave the watch to her since he must be tired, and adds that there are no C rank or higher monsters out, so it should be fine. Jirei says he will still stay because he would worry otherwise. He uses his detection magic to check the area and starts to wonder how Fina knows the monster situation. He figures out she must be using detection magic too. His magic picks up something moving in the bushes. He throws a stone and a rabbit jumps out, clearly frightened. Jirei picks it up and sees that it is a drooping rabbit, a D-rank monster. He says they are rare to see because they usually hide so fast. Fina calls it cute. Jirei asks if this is her first time seeing one, and she says it is. He explains that its meat and parts are valuable, takes out a knife, and tells her to look away. Fina looks horrified, and Jirei says he is not going to hurt it. He raises his arm and asks if she wants to pet it. Fina smiles and asks if that is okay. She pets the rabbit, puts it in her lap, and says it is very fluffy. Jirei notices she is wearing a necklace and asks about it. Fina says it is her treasure. She dropped it earlier, but someone kind returned it. Jirei realizes that the necklace he picked up must have been hers. He thought it was someone else's because the person had white hair. Fina says the necklace has a photo inside. Jirei asks if it is the black-haired person she talked about in the carriage, and Fina says yes. She says every time she sees it, she thinks of that person. Jirei figures she is about to go on again about her precious person. Fina says she sometimes gets scared, wondering if the person is still alive. She has been waiting for 9 years. Jirei tells her that he believes the black-haired hero is alive, even though he has no way to prove it. Fina thanks him and says he is kind. Jirei gets flustered and says he is a kind and handsome guy who just prefers sleeping and doing nothing. If he could, he would stay at home forever. Fina says that is not a good idea, but Jirei says doing just enough to live is good enough and he lives without stress. Fina says she wants to be free too, without thinking about her status. Jirei says that since she chose that path, it is fine to follow her heart and marry the black-haired hero. Fina is happy and says maybe she will meet him again and it will work out. She says she is reckless enough to try. Jirei tells her not to worry about it so much. She waited 9 years already, so it is okay to be a little selfish. Fina says she is surprised she opened up this much to someone like Jirei. He tells her she can keep talking to him if she wants, and if she has any worries, he will listen. Fina jumps up happily and says she wants to talk more about the black-haired hero. Jirei says only for a little while. Several days pass after taking the request, and not much has happened. The other adventurers dealt with all the monsters, so Jirei has just been relaxing. After leaving the forest, they spot a village nearby and decide to rest there for the night. When they reach the village entrance, there are no guards. Fina thinks that is strange and says they should check inside. As they walk around, they do not see any villagers. Then an old man comes out of a building and asks if they are adventurers. Fina asks what happened and where everyone is. The old man says all the villagers were kidnapped. The old man explains what happened to the villagers. He says he was only staying in the village for a short while, and everything happened a few days ago. A group of monsters arrived alongside men wearing black masks. They took all the food, supplies, and valuable metals from the village, and then they kidnapped the villagers. The attackers got past the gate guards by threatening a merchant and hiding inside one of the merchant's cargo carts. The villagers could not call for help because their communication tool did not reach far enough, so contacting the neighboring country was impossible. Until the party arrived, no one was able to help. Wed guesses that the attackers might be bandit beast tamers. Eve gets upset hearing the story. Fina says that slavery was officially abolished in the Hurt continent a few years ago and wonders if something else is going on. Jirei confirms that slavery still exists on other continents. He says that especially in the Bestia continent, where beast folk still live, hatred toward humans is still strong because humans once invaded and took their land during a past war. Because of that, human slaves could be sold there for high prices. The reason the old man was not taken is because his legs no longer work, so the kidnappers probably thought he had no value. Jirei then asks Fina what she wants to do next. Fina seems confused by the question. so Jirei explains that their job was only to escort her to Ital. Anything beyond that depends on her decision as the client. He says that if they leave now, they might still be able to catch up to the kidnappers and rescue the villagers. Fina says they cannot leave the villagers behind and decides they will go rescue them. Everyone agrees. Wed asks how they are supposed to start tracking the kidnappers. Jirei is about to speak, but Fina quickly offers to use her clairvoyance ability. However, her guard steps forward and urges her not to use it. Fina says there are human lives at stake, and they cannot just ignore it. Her guard warns her that if she uses her ability, she will no longer be able to stay hidden. Jirei says she does not have to use her magic because he has a tool that can help them. He pulls out a magic item from his item box. Both the guard and Fina are surprised, and Fina asks how he managed to get such a rare item. Jirei says he just happened to pick it up somewhere. He uses it and locates the kidnappers hiding in a cave in the forest. He says they have not gone far. Fina takes the item and looks through it. She sees that the villagers match the old man's description and seem to be safe. Wed also uses it and spots monsters stronger than B rank. He counts more than 60 of them. He says a direct assault will be tough and dangerous. Fina points out that the kidnappers might use the villagers as hostages, so a stealth rescue might be safer. Wed suggests creating a distraction to rescue the villagers. He says it will be hard to keep the kidnappers distracted for long, but a few minutes should be enough. Lena questions why they are avoiding a direct fight. She says if they let the kidnappers escape, they will just do this again, so they should wipe them out now. Everyone hesitates, unsure of what to do. Jirei asks why they are all acting confused. He says there is no need to overthink it. Since they have Retinoa, the attack hero, they can go with a head-on assault. Everyone suddenly remembers that Retinoa really is the attack hero, and not just someone who acts silly. Rady smiles, not understanding what is going on. At the cave entrance, the kidnappers are panicking and trying to flee. They cannot figure out why they are being attacked so suddenly. Lena uses flame magic to block their escape. Flames cover the area around them. Wed swings his weapon and strikes down several wolves. One of the kidnappers orders the wolves to attack Reddy, but she defeats them with a single swing of her sword and says it is way too easy. Jirei sits on top of the cave roof using gravitation magic. He watches the others fight and comments on how strong they are. As a D-rank adventurer, he was told to stay back and guard the area, which he does not mind since he never feels like fighting anyway. He notices that the kidnappers' masks have a skull design. He remembers seeing the same kind of mask in the past, when he saved someone as a kid. He starts to think about the past, but tells himself that it is odd to remember something like that now. Just to be safe, he uses his detection magic to scan the area. He checks on the group rescuing the villagers and sees that things are going well. He looks back toward the battlefield. Kane is fighting one of the wolves and does not notice a kidnapper sneaking up behind him. The attacker gets ready to strike, and Kane notices it too late. Before the knife reaches him, Jirei uses his marionette magic to freeze the kidnapper in place and forces him to stab himself instead. Kane is confused and wonders what just happened. As he gets distracted, the wolf lunges at him, but Kane quickly reacts and finishes it off. Jirei is impressed by Kane's reflexes. He expected Kane to be just a B rank on paper, but his movement is closer to a solid C rank. Still, Jirei wonders why Kane isn't using body-strengthening magic. It's one of the basics for any swordsman since it enhances both movement and swordsmanship. Without it, Kane's having a hard time with just one wolf. Jirei also realizes that Kane isn't using any detection magic either. He figures it might be because of Kane's school background. He's been through similar restrictions himself, especially during his training in binding techniques. Just then, Rady defeats the last of the wolves. Lena says it ended faster than she expected, and Wed adds that they should regroup with the rescue team now. Jirei watches Reddy's group leave and stops using his gravitational magic. He walks deeper into the cave where the villagers were being held. The tunnel appears to be a dead end, but Jirei finds a hidden magic circle on the wall. He uses his magic to dispel it, revealing a large transfer circle behind it. He mutters that he should wrap this up quickly and get back to the others. Meanwhile, one of the kidnappers flees from the cave. He panics, wondering how the attack hero ended up here and how their plan is now completely ruined. He rushes to a hidden area with another transfer circle and pulls out an item, planning to activate it and escape to a different location. Before he can use it though, he's hit with Jirei's paralysis magic. He collapses and drops the item, which turns out to be a set of 10 subordination bells. Jirei walks over and picks them up, saying that the kidnapper sure has some nasty tools. With those bells, he could have easily controlled a huge number of monsters. Jirei looks around and sees wolves beginning to gather in the area. The kidnapper asks why Jirei is there, and Jirei answers that he followed him through the transfer circle in the cave. The kidnapper is shocked, saying he used concealment magic to hide it. Jirei mocks the poor quality of the magic, saying it was too sloppy to fool him. The kidnapper is stunned. He's a former A-rank magic adventurer, and only a handful of people should have been able to see through that spell. Jirei says he had been wondering how the kidnappers planned to transport the villagers across continents. Moving that many people past the border would be impossible. The only option would have been a large transfer magic circle. He confirms that this one leads to the Bestia continent and immediately destroys it. The kidnapper is horrified. Jirei not only discovered the circle, but analyzed, interfered, and dismantled it like it was nothing. Jirei pulls out the skull-marked mask he stored earlier and asks if the man is a survivor of the Skull Brigade. The kidnapper is shocked that he knows the name. Jirei realizes he guessed right. He thought he had wiped them all out years ago, but was clearly careless. As he prepares to leave, the kidnapper feels the paralysis magic wearing off and tries to escape. Jirei casually warns him not to move, but it's too late. The kidnapper screams in pain. Jirei explains that the paralysis he used carries poison, and if he moves, it spreads through his body, causing agony. He adds that the poison will finish him off in a few minutes, so trying to run is pointless. The kidnapper panics and begs Jirei to save him. Jirei asks if he swears to turn himself in to the knights and change his ways. The man desperately swears he will. Jirei places his hand on him, and the kidnapper smiles, thinking he's been forgiven. But Jirei grabs his hair roughly and glares at him. He tells him he decided long ago never to believe people like him again. Jirei asks if the kidnapper knows what happens to human slaves in the Bestia continent. They are tortured so badly that they wish they were never born. No one comes to help. No one cares. Jirei throws him to the ground and says he doesn't deserve any mercy. As Jirei walks away, the kidnapper throws one of the subordination bells at him in desperation. The surrounding monsters start rushing toward Jirei to attack. The kidnapper laughs and says he'll take Jirei down with him. But Jirei calmly uses word magic and commands the monsters to stop and move aside. The monsters immediately freeze and make a path for him. The kidnapper watches in disbelief as Jirei walks through them, smiling coldly and mutters that he must be the demon lord. Jirei uses word magic to make the monster move out of his way, then pulls a coat from his item box and puts it on. He says some cringy lines like, "Tonight the darkness is deep," and acts like a demon lord. But when he gets back to the base where the party is, he feels embarrassed about what he did. Wed asks him if something's wrong and if he's feeling sick, but Jirei just says he's fine. Wed walks off while munching on some meat, and Jirei thinks back on everything. A few hours earlier, he had chased a survivor from a human trafficking group, following him through a transfer magic circle the man had set up. After that, it had been a while since his cringy side, part of a long-time illness from childhood, woke up again. Jirei decides to forget about it and looks over at the party the villagers have thrown. They wanted to celebrate being rescued and show their appreciation, so they made a ton of food and planned to have fun. While eating some meat, Jirei notices Kane walking away from the party and wonders what's going on with him. He approaches Kane and asks if he's not eating, but Kane tells him to leave him alone. Jirei asks if he's not hungry, and Kane says he doesn't have the right to eat. Jirei wants to know what he means, and Kane says he couldn't do anything during the battle in the cave. The hero and other adventurers took down all the wolves, while he struggled with just one and got in their way. Jirei laughs and tells him not to worry because he was just house-sitting, while Kane at least joined the fight, which is more than he did. Kane gets mad, yelling at Jirei not to make fun of him. He says he's the third son of the Stolz family and that unlike Jirei, an adventurer with no obligations, he's better and different. Kane falls to the ground, thinking to himself that he has no talent at all. People have told him in the past that he's a disgrace to the Stolz family and should be grateful just to be alive. Kane was born without magic, which was considered a condition. Since magic is necessary to become a swordsman, he had to rely on his physical body, but still couldn't catch up to his brothers. His father gave him a gift by assigning him a high adventurer rank. but Kane knew it was just to maintain the family's reputation. He ended up joining a party of high-ranked adventurers with a rank that was just for show. Kane hoped to grow stronger and prove himself so he could earn a place where he belonged. After a while, some adventurers came up to Kane asking if he was the B-rank adventurer who was recruiting. They were mostly D rank or lower, but Kane accepted them, saw them as friends, and enjoyed going on adventures with them. One day, though, he overheard them calling him an idiot. They joked about how Kane paid for all their equipment just because they were friends, and how easy it was to ask him for more by pretending the gear was for family when it broke. One of them laughed about how Kane always said things like, "We're comrades," and how naive that was. Kane got upset and ran off, shouting to the sky that he really thought of them as comrades and calling them trash. He said they were just parasites clinging to high-ranking adventurers, and that low ranks were nothing but trash. Back in the present, Jireh starts walking away, telling Kane that if he changes his mind, he should come back, but if he takes too long, Jireh will eat all the food. Then he remembers something, pulls out a bag of snacks from his item box, and gives it to Kane. He says he wants to know what Kane thinks of them and tells him to taste them properly and share his opinion. Kane asks why Jireh even cares and calls him a D rank. Back at the party, Jireh says Kane must have a tough life too, and that being laid back like him is fine sometimes. Still, he's curious what a noble thinks of the snacks. The next day, after dealing with the kidnappers and enjoying the feast, they continue escorting Fina to Ital. During lunch, everyone relaxes in their own way. As always, Jireh looks for a quiet spot to enjoy a peaceful nap. After a while, Reti, Lena, and Eve are playing in the river nearby, wearing swimsuits. Reti tries catching a fish and wonders if they can eat it, then quickly catches one. Jireh wakes up and sees the three girls playing in the water right in front of him, and the skin-colored scenery hides him as part of the background. Lena says it feels great to wash up at least once a day, and Eve replies that while cleanse magic gets rid of dirt, it still feels gross. Reti is just playing around, trying to catch some fish for lunch. Jireh thinks to himself that this is a bad situation. He had just come here to take a nap, and to avoid getting disturbed, he used camouflage magic so they wouldn't see him. The problem is, if he moves even a little, the magic will cancel, and they'll think he was spying on them. While Lena is chatting with Eve and Reti, she says that their escort client is kind of unusual. Despite being a noble, she's not arrogant, and because of her family situation, she insisted on bathing alone. Lena then remembers that Reti and Eve are also nobles. Eve says she was adopted into a noble family, and Reti says she probably was too. Lena is surprised and asks how she doesn't know her own family background. Then she turns to Eve and says that she thought Eve didn't like being friends with others, but now she's talking to them, which makes her happy. Eve tells her to stop talking so much. Then Eve turns around and asks Lena if they're really safe from being seen by anyone. Jireh starts to panic. Lena assures her it's fine, saying she checked the area with detection magic and didn't find anyone around. She also set up a barrier, so no one can get through. Eve still worries that someone might show up, but Lena says there's no way unless someone used extremely high-level disguise magic. Jireh thinks to himself that his camouflage magic is exactly that, which really sucks for him right now. Lena asks Eve why she's so worried when they're just wearing swimsuits anyway and jokes about whether Eve has a crush on someone. Eve gets embarrassed and denies it, saying she's just normal and believes a girl should only show herself to someone she likes. Someone once told her that people don't like girls who don't take care of themselves. Lena says that Eve definitely has someone she likes, and she's kind of jealous that Eve can say she's a normal girl. Lena then asks, hypothetically, what Eve would do if someone did see them. Eve says that she'd make sure they regretted being born. That makes Jireh panic again and accidentally let out a small noise. Lena hears something and wonders what it was. Eve starts getting suspicious, but Lena reassures her that there's no way anyone's there. Jireh stays frozen and thinks that he's really in trouble now. They'll find him any second since they know where the sound came from. He realizes he has no choice but to do something fast. He quickly transforms into a drooping rabbit using magic and tries to escape, but Eve and Lena catch him almost immediately and start touching him. Lena says it's rare to catch one of these rabbits, and Reti returns with a big fish, excited that they'll have both fish and meat for lunch. Jirei panics even more because his transformation magic is weak, and he can only hold it for about 3 minutes. Eve pets him, saying how cute he is, but he runs off before the transformation breaks. Eve is disappointed. Jirei turns back into himself once he's safely away and says that was way too close. He hopes nobody found out and that his dignity is still intact. As he's walking, he notices a gathering of spirits in one area. He spots a girl swimming and talking to the spirits while showing her body. Jirei is shocked by the sight and thinks it's like something out of a fairy tale. He describes her as having beautiful white hair, ruby red eyes, and smooth skin. He gets flustered and tells himself that it's wrong to keep looking. He turns away and walks off, finally stepping out of the barrier magic. He wonders who that mysterious girl was and if she's part of their group. 5 days have passed since they took on the escort quest. Wed calls out to Jirei, inviting him to play cards. Jirei says he doesn't want to because he always loses and suspects Wed is cheating. Wed plays innocent, and Fina laughs at them. Jirei thinks everyone is too relaxed and wonders if they forgot they're still on an escort mission. He reminds himself that they're almost at Ital, and the scouts should be returning soon. It feels like the quest is almost over. Just then, one of the scouts comes running toward them, shouting that something bad has happened. Fina and Jirei both turn to him, asking what's going on. Fina tells him to calm down and explain, and the scout says that monsters have taken over Ital. The party moves closer to Ital to see what is going on, and they spot zombies, skeletons, and wraiths. Lena says she can sense undead energy coming from the entire city, and Jirei notices that the monsters aren't able to pass through the city's barrier. One of the party members says it would be hard to defeat all of the monsters and thinks that something like this couldn't have happened naturally. They wonder if the monsters used to be the people who lived in Ital. Eve agrees, saying it has to be the former residents because it's impossible to summon that many monsters, and it would take too much energy to keep casting that magic over and over again. Fina says it's all right and believes the black-haired hero must be hiding somewhere safe, but she doesn't look well. Lena questions how she can say something like that when the truth is right in front of them, and says no one could have survived something like this. Kane says they need to leave right away, and tells everyone to run. Wed tells him that if he wants to run, he can, since he's still young and nobody will blame him. Kane gets upset and asks what they should do, shouting that even if they try to fight, they'll just get eliminated. Wed says maybe it won't change much, but right now the monsters are trapped inside Ital because of the barrier. He asks what will happen if that barrier fails. Kane suddenly realizes what Wed means, and Wed explains that the monsters will head straight for the nearest villages, towns, or even other countries. If they want to rescue people, they'll need to buy some time. He mentions that Universia Kingdom is nearby and says his family lives there, so running isn't an option for him. He asks Jirei if he and Kane can escort Fina back to Universia and ask for reinforcements, while he tells Reddy and the rest of the adventurers that they need to stay and hold off the monsters. Fina says she'll stay too because there's something she has to confirm no matter what. Kane yells at them, asking why they aren't running and whether they're not scared of dying. Wed admits he's afraid of the monsters, but says what scares him more is losing the people he loves. Kane starts thinking this might be his last shot at changing himself, and if he fights alongside them and defeats the monsters, maybe he can finally gain real friends he can count on. He asks if he can help, surprising the whole group. Wed says Kane has courage, and everyone seems happy. Jirei thinks that if no one else is backing out, then he'll have to fight too, though he still wishes he could just leave. Wed turns to Jirei and asks if he's joining them, and Jirei says he will since everyone else is in. Wed says they need a plan, and Eve brings up that whoever turned the people into monsters is probably still nearby. She says that while fighting the monsters is one thing, finding the person who did this is a different issue. Wed suggests using Jirei's magic tool to locate them, but Jirei explains that he's already been using it and hasn't found anyone. He says if they had access to the highest level of detection magic, it'd be easier. That's when Fina says she has an idea and removes her ring. Her guard tries to stop her, but it's too late. Fina introduces herself as Rafine Odium Refinato and says she'll search for the person using her clairvoyance ability. Her appearance changes as soon as she removes the ring, and everyone is surprised. Lena asks if she's really the princess. Rafine confirms it, saying she hadn't wanted to reveal her identity, but given the circumstances, she has no choice. Jirei remembers the name Rafine, Before he accepted the escort quest, people in the Universia Kingdom were shouting her name and looking for her. He looks at her and thinks she's not only beautiful like a flower, but also intelligent enough to use clairvoyance, the kingdom's top-level detection magic. To him, she's more like an idol than a princess, being friendly with everyone and having multiple fan clubs. He also remembers the day they took a break in the forest and saw someone bathing and talking to spirits. Now he realizes that it was her and decides to keep that to himself. Rafine's guard asks her if she really understands what she's doing by revealing her true identity. Rafine uses her voice magic on her guard, Cheyenne, to quiet her. She tells everyone that there's no point in hiding who she is anymore and asks if it's okay to use clairvoyance. Lena agrees, and Rafine starts casting the spell with a long chant. Jireh watches her and is amazed. Normally, the chant for clairvoyance is really long, but Rafine manages to control a massive amount of magic power with ease and could possibly rival an S-rank magician. Jireh remembers trying to learn clairvoyance once, but gave up since it required too much reading, and he's more of a hands-on learner. Then he figures that since Rafine is right there, he might as well observe and try to imitate her. He focuses on sensing the magic and using just the right amount of mana, and before long he also activates clairvoyance. Right after that, he notices someone behind him and is confused, thinking there's no way he found someone that quickly. Since no one else has picked up on it, he realizes that Rafine's clairvoyance didn't detect the monster because its level is much higher than hers. The monster decides that it's time to strike the party. The monster steps out from the bushes where he was hiding and introduces himself as Kaerfs the Death Eater, one of the 4 heavenly kings who serve the Demon Lord. He tells the party to come and embrace eternal sleep at his hands, acting like a typical evil villain before the main character shows up to defeat him. The group is caught off guard, and Rafine asks why her clairvoyance didn't detect him. Kaerfs mocks them, calling them pathetic and saying there's no way a weak ability like that could pick up on him. He says he only revealed himself because they failed to find him, then laughs at them. One of the adventurers launches an attack, using Void Blade Decapitation, but the strike fails. Kaerfs' barrier blocks it completely. He mocks the adventurer, asking if he's swinging around a toy sword, then says he hates people like him. Kaerfs unleashes his own attack. At first it looks like nothing happened, but then a hole appears in the adventurer's stomach. Jireh is shocked. Kaerfs calls them weak humans and tells them to stop defying someone who is clearly a higher being. Rafine quickly calls for recovery magic, and Eve responds, using High Heal to treat the wound. Jireh realizes that Kaerfs had fired a magic bullet and that he barely managed to intercept it in time to reduce the damage. Still, the situation is bad. The healing magic is working, but unless the adventurer gets to a hospital soon, things could turn worse. Kaerfs asks if they understand the situation they're in now. That's when Reddy steps forward and declares she'll be his opponent. She says she'll defeat him using her holy sword, though she can't remember the sword's name. Kaerfs asks if she's the current generation's hero. She says yes, then casually points at Jireh and says he's her teacher, and much stronger than she is. Kaerfs doesn't believe it. He says the fun's over and it's time to stop playing around, especially since someone's trying to buy time. He calls out Lenny, saying she's been gathering mana and asks if she thought he wouldn't notice. Lenny is startled. Kaerfs says he needs to report back to the Demon Lord and doesn't have time to waste. He declares that the Demon Lord will be pleased with him for wiping out Etal and says that the black-haired hero is already dead and that he's taken the entire city. Rafine is shocked and asks if he's lying. She insists that the black-haired hero must still be alive. Kaerfs denies it and tells them to look at a nearby building. They all turn to see the black-haired hero slumped in a chair, motionless. Rafine is horrified. Kaerfs says the hero was weak, that even with divine protection, he was just another bug. Rafine falls to her knees and says it's not possible, that he was her hero, her fated one. Cheyenne tries to shake her back to her senses and insists the demon is lying. Kaerfs, tired of the delays, says he's going to finish things. He casts excess gravity, forcing everyone to the ground, their bodies pinned down under intense weight. He laughs, saying they can't escape now. Jireh thinks the skeleton monster's power is way above what he expected. Even the A-rank adventurers and the hero, Reiti, are useless against him. He didn't want to stand out and had stayed a D rank to live lazily, but he realizes now is not the time for that. He decides to show them what the main character can really do. While the others are still being crushed under the gravity magic, Jireh stands up. Carathis is shocked and wonders how he's moving. Thinking maybe he forgot to target Jireh, he casts the gravity spell again, but Jireh doesn't budge. Carathis demands to know why it's not working and asks if Jireh is using a magic tool to block it. Jireh tells him he isn't. Carathis is furious and says he's going to take Jireh out painfully. He casts Abyssal Black Flame, summoning a small black orb that floats toward Jireh. Wed yells at Jireh to dodge, but Jireh just touches it, and black flames swirl everywhere. Everyone panics, but Jireh tells them to stop yelling. It's annoying. The black flames swirl around him without doing any damage. Everyone is stunned. Jireh says he'll be fine since he's survived a dragon's breath before. Wed asks if he's still alive, and Jireh shrugs it off, saying he is, for now. He grabs the swirling black flames and casually throws them away, which stuns Carathis. Carathis says it's impossible for someone to just brush off his magic like that. He tries a different attack, Calamity Water Dragon, but Jireh just slaps it away. Carathis switches to Earth Magic, Life-Reaping Stone Coffin, and Jireh kicks it aside. Then he uses Wind Magic, Storm of Annihilation, and Jireh simply blows on it. Carathis is speechless and asks what's wrong with him. Frustrated, he says he'll use the one spell he didn't want to. He begins chanting a super long incantation and casts Eclipse Catastrophe, unleashing a massive black sphere above the city. Wed sees it and is instantly terrified. Wed says it's all over and that if the fireball hits them, no one will survive. What he doesn't know is that the main character can easily handle it. Jireh calmly says it's fine and uses his magic, skill interference, to erase the massive black ball from the sky. Wed and Carathis are both stunned. Carathis stammers, asking what, why, and how it happened, unable to form a proper sentence. He admits he doesn't understand and asks if Jireh is even human. Jireh replies that he is. He looks human and even calls himself handsome. Jireh then asks Carathis if he's out of mana, and Carathis is visibly shocked. As Jireh starts walking toward him, Carathis panics, saying there's no way he could lose to a human. Suddenly, he gets an idea and uses his magic to pull Cain in front of Jireh as a shield. Cain panics, saying he can't control his body. It's moving on its own. Carathis laughs and says he used manipulation magic with what little mana he had left. Since Cain has barely any mana, he was easy to control. He taunts Jireh, saying that now that his friend is a hostage, he can't do anything. Jireh calmly says that Cain isn't really his friend, which stuns Cain. Carathis asks if they're really not friends, and Cain seems confused too. Wed tells Jireh to stop joking around, but Jireh says their relationship only exists because of the escort quest. He calls Cain just an acquaintance, a stranger, not a friend. Both Wed and Carathis are taken aback. Carathis calls him a demon and says he's a horrible person. Then he comes up with another plan. What if he takes more people hostage? What if every citizen in Ital depended on Jireh? Wed asks what he means, questioning whether any of the citizens are still alive. Jireh realizes what Carathis did and uses falsehood barrier magic. He explains that this magic can turn lies into truths in a certain area if specific conditions are met, conditions like a red sky, collapsed buildings, lots of blood and flesh, and he had set the reversal of life and death as the condition. Jireh says Carathis has bad taste. Carathis laughs and asks if Jireh doesn't want to save the people in the city. Rafine begs Jireh to save them. She's crying and asks if it's even possible. Carathis taunts them, asking if there's anyone in the city they'd want to save. Rafine says that if the black-haired hero isn't there, then nothing matters. If he could come back to life, she would do anything. She keeps begging Jireh to save them. Jireh thinks she must be talking about the person who had just been eliminated. But he also believes that the divine protection from the Holy Mark should have kept that hero safe inside the barrier. He asks Rafine if she really means it when she says she'll do anything. She gets scared, but Jireh tells her she doesn't need to go that far. He'll save them. He casts Purify Undead magic across the entire city, breaking Carathis' spell. The citizens wake up, confused, wondering if they'd just had a nightmare. Even the black-haired hero wakes up, thinking he had just fallen asleep. Carathis is in disbelief, asking what Jireh did and why his barrier disappeared. Jirei explains that to remove the falsehood barrier, all he had to do was change the conditions. He used a slightly altered version of Turn Undead to clear the sky and repair the damaged city, which reversed the effects and brought everyone back to life. Karfs is stunned that Jirei makes it sound so easy. He says he has to escape now and threatens to take Kane down with him if Jirei tries anything. But Kane speaks up, telling Jirei not to worry about him. Rather than being a burden, he says he'd rather be eliminated along with Karfes. Karfes is thrown off and asks what he's talking about. Kane admits that throughout his life, no one needed him, and he doesn't mind dying here. Jirei says he's not planning on letting him die. While it's true that Kane is selfish and only thinks of himself, Jirei says he still needs him. Then he uses an overpowered magic spell, saying he won't let Kane be eliminated. In one strike, he takes down Karfes. The monster disappears, and with that, the gravity spell on the party fades. They can finally move again. Jirei casually says that it's Raffinelli over, and Wed runs up and hugs him. He tells Jirei he's insanely strong and asks why he's still at D rank. He really thought they were done for. Rafine, watching it all, realizes that even if the monster had been weakened, Jirei still destroyed its protective barrier and defeated it in a single attack. She thinks he must be extremely powerful. Reddy proudly calls him her master. Jirei tells everyone to give him some space. He wonders if it would have been better to just walk away instead of fighting, then calls them all annoying. Still, he laughs, saying it felt kind of good to do it. Suddenly, though, he senses a strong aura nearby. It's not aimed at him. He looks around to find the target and sees a ball of magic flying toward Rafine. Jirei rushes over and pushes her to the ground just in time to save her. He realizes the attack came from one of the party members. He wonders if it was Lena, who shares the same last name as a known family of assassins. He questions why she would target Rafine. Before he can say or do anything else, he checks on Rafine, asking if she's okay. She says she is and asks if he's hurt. Jirei notices his clothes got burned while shielding her. He takes off his shirt to grab a new one. Rafine gets flustered but notices a scar on his chest. She suddenly realizes that Jirei might be someone she met in the past. The story shifts to 9 years in the past, when Rafine was still a child. She's playing tag with some of the palace maids and taps one of them, telling her she's it now. She dashes off, laughing, while the maid complains that the plates she was carrying are now all broken. Back then, Rafine behaved like any childish girl, often causing trouble around the royal palace. Her father, King Pilar Odium Refinado, adored her, and no matter what mischief she caused, she was never punished. But there was a reason behind her constant pranks. Rafine once approached her older sister and asked if she wanted to play, but her sister dismissed her coldly, calling her dirty blood. Another sister said that she would never play with an unofficial child like Rafine, warning that even being near her would make her dirty. Alone in her room, Rafine played with her stuffed bear and wondered why none of her sisters wanted to be with her. Her father was always too busy, and she cried, asking herself if she had done something wrong. She was always by herself and wanted someone to notice her. Because she was so lonely, she began playing pranks just to get attention. Over time, she developed a habit of sneaking out of the royal castle and heading into the forest nearby, where she had built her own secret base. One day, she used voice magic to command a maid to stop in her tracks, then made her way into the forest again. Excited, she proudly declared that she'd successfully escaped the castle once more. But near her base, she spotted a boy doing exercises and wondered who he was. He had black hair and wore a strange mask. The boy sensed someone nearby and warned them to show themselves, threatening to come over if they didn't. Rafine, scared, didn't answer, so the boy ran toward her and soon realized it was just a little girl. He told her this wasn't a place for a child, and she should go home before her parents got worried. Rafine argued that this was her place and told the boy to leave. He said it wasn't like she owned the land, so why should he? She insisted that it was her secret base and tried to use voice magic to make him leave, but it didn't work. Surprised, the boy asked if she'd done something to him. Rafine was confused as to why her magic hadn't worked, and the boy, thinking maybe he'd been too harsh, apologized. When Rafine began to cry, he told her not to cry and offered to tell her a story. Her tears stopped, and the boy shared several tales, ones more exciting than anything she'd ever heard at the palace. Rafine was captivated. When he finished, he asked if she'd stopped crying, but Rafine replied that she was still crying and asked him to tell her more. He said that was enough for the day and that it was getting late, so she should go home. Smiling, Rafine promised to see him again tomorrow. From that day on, she visited the forest every day, and the boy always had a story to share. Out of all of them, her favorite was the one where a hero defeats the demon lord, saves the world, and marries a princess. Rafine asked if she could become a princess like the one in the story, but the boy said she definitely couldn't. Offended, she asked why, and he said it was because the princess in the story spoke politely, unlike her. Annoyed, Rafine adjusted her tone and tried to speak more formally, which made the boy laugh. She wanted things to stay like this forever, but one day, everything changed. When Rafine arrived at her secret base like usual, she was suddenly ambushed by a group of kidnappers. They handed money to someone who had given them information about her and assumed she must be from a noble family. They planned to ask for a ransom or sell her for even more money. Scared, Rafine shouted at them and used voice magic to stop one of the men from moving. It worked briefly, and she tried to run away, but another one struck her from behind. Dazed and in pain, Rafine realized she couldn't control that many people at once. The leader of the group said he had changed his mind about letting her go and would sell her instead. He said she'd never see her parents again and ordered the others to cover her mouth and shove her in a bag. Just as Rafine cried for help, the boy from before appeared and asked what was going on. In a flash, he took down the surrounding kidnappers, leaving only the leader standing. The man drew his sword and charged at the boy, knocking his weapon away. He mocked the boy for trying to play hero for the sake of a little brat. The boy calmly asked why someone so strong would choose this kind of life. He said the man clearly had other options, so why do this? The kidnapper sneered, asking if the boy was begging for his life. The boy denied it and said he just didn't understand why someone with the power to live honestly would choose to hurt others and steal from the weak. The man replied that he did it because it was fun. He said living a normal life was boring and that the strong should do whatever they want. To him, life was about crushing the weak. He attacked again, but the boy stopped the sword with his bare hand. The man was stunned. The boy said he understood what kind of person he was now. Then he broke the sword with his hand and grabbed the man by the neck. The man cursed at him, but the boy calmly told him to swear that he'd surrender to the chivalric order and regret what he'd done. If he did, the boy promised to spare him. The man quickly agreed and begged for forgiveness, swearing he'd live a proper life. He admitted that he had been a terrible person, willing to hurt and rob others without remorse. As the boy turned around, he noticed that the kidnappers' gang had gotten back up and were stepping on the bag where Rafine was trapped. One of the thugs groans, saying his nose is broken, then cruelly steps on the bag Rafine is trapped in, making her cry out in pain. The main thug warns the boy not to move, or else they'll eliminate the girl. He mocks the boy, saying that even if he's strong, he's still just a child. Laughing, he accuses the boy of fighting without the courage to eliminate anyone. The boy calmly asks if he was lying earlier when he said he'd regret what he had done. The thug sneers, admitting he would never make a promise like that. He demands the boy release his body reinforcement magic or they'll eliminate the girl. The boy silently complies, and as soon as the reinforcement is removed, the thug punches him. The other thugs pile on and beat him as well. The leader tells them to stop, saying the boy is strong, and it's a shame that he has to eliminate him. He makes him an offer, join the Skull Brigade as his right-hand man. The boy flatly refuses, so the thug strikes him again. The boy then casts healing magic on himself, but the thug threatens to finish off the girl if he moves again. The boy, however, says it's no longer a problem. Looking around, the thug suddenly realizes that all of his men have been taken down, each with knives embedded in them. Panicked, he demands to know what the boy did. The boy tells him that at first he thought defeating monsters would be enough to become a hero, but now he understands that there's more to it. He thanks the thug for helping him realize this, and says he hates people like him, and the reason is obvious. In desperation, the thug draws a knife and charges, but suddenly he can't move. The boy explains that he used marionette magic, which only works on people with low magic resistance. Then, with a final blow, he eliminates the thug and rushes over to Rafine. He takes her out of the bag, heals her, and asks if she's okay. Rafine thanks him, looking around in shock. The boy gently covers her eyes and tells her not to worry about what happened to the thugs. He explains that they were a well-known bandit group in the area. Rafine asks why he saved her, and he replies that heroes are supposed to save people. Blushing, Rafine stares at him, and the boy, thinking she might be sick, offers to carry her close to the castle. She asks if he's a hero, and he says that he's going to become one. He has a dream. Rafine tells him she'll cheer for him and realizes she likes him. A few months later, Rafine heads to the secret base again, but this time she finds the boy wounded, his chest covered in scratches. Panicking, she rushes back to the castle to get help, but healing magic does not work. Something is preventing it. She prays desperately, and eventually, the boy recovers. She asks if he's okay now and tells him she wants to play again the next day, but the boy shakes his head and tells her he won't be coming back. When she asks why, he tells her that he has to go. He's headed into an important battle. Rafine begs to come with him, but he says she'd only get in the way. Instead, he gives her a magical item, the Ring of Transformation. He tells her he's going to win and wants her to wait for him with the ring. Rafine wonders if this is a proposal, just like in the stories he told her, and assumes he's going off to fight the Demon Lord. She promises she'll wait for him forever. Rafine believes the boy was trying to live out the story of the hero who defeats the Demon Lord and marries the princess. So, to become that princess, she started improving her behavior and studying the basics of word magic, which she had from birth. She didn't know where the boy had gone, so she dedicated herself to mastering detection magic until she eventually acquired clairvoyance. But 9 years passed and he never returned. Even clairvoyance couldn't help her find him. Day by day, she grew more hopeless until she received a report about a black-haired hero in Ital. That information turned out to be false, but eventually, she met the real person she had been searching for, Jireh. As she keeps staring at him, Jireh wonders what Rafine is thinking and asks if she's finally realizing how handsome he is. She laughs, says he is good-looking, then hugs him tightly. Jireh is confused, but Rafine simply says that she's finally found her fated person. It has been a full day since they defeated the skeleton demon who claimed to be one of the 4 heavenly kings in the Demon Lord's army. The party member who had accepted the quest also survived and is now recovering at a medical facility. When Jireh used his magic to solve the undead crisis in Ital, he also altered the memories of the people living there, so none of them remember what happened. The black-haired hero was later thrown in jail for faking the hero's mark. Although peace returned to Ital, Jireh was now facing a very different kind of problem. Rafine sat on his bed in only her undergarments, telling him that they would have their wedding in the grandest ceremony hall in the kingdom. She declared that from now on they would be together and asked how many children they should have, insisting they needed many to raise a successor for the kingdom. The other party members had already bombarded him with questions earlier, so Jireh had quickly left their company. He was sure he had gone to sleep alone in his room the night before, so he was completely stunned. He shouted at Rafine, demanding to know how she got into his bed and telling her to put some clothes on. He asked why she was following him around and reminded her that she had been searching for a black-haired hero. Rafine insisted they were fated to marry. Shocked, Jireh asked what proof she had, and she mentioned the scar on his chest. Her fated person had the exact same one. She explained how he had saved her as a child, just like a prince in a fairy tale, and asked if he remembered. Jireh, in fact, did not remember, but didn't admit it. Rafine described the black-haired hero she used to play with in vivid detail. Back then, Jireh had been training heat sense and presence sense, wearing a mask that prevented him from seeing clearly. He had believed that saving people would help him awaken the holy mark, so he rescued many, but never remembered them all. When Rafine mentioned the ring he gave her before supposedly going off to battle the Demon Lord, Jireh silently recalled he had only gone to a magical item auction that day and hadn't even gotten what he wanted. He saved Rafine for his own ambition, not for love. She had simply misunderstood everything. As Jireh stared at her, Rafine became flustered and told him to stop staring. Jireh asked her to back off and to stop speaking so formally. She apologized and instead called him dear, her eyes glowing with intensity, definitely a red flag. Jireh panicked and told her that if he never made a marriage promise and if he saved her for selfish reasons, what would she do? She said she wouldn't want to live anymore. A world without Jireh would be meaningless. At that point, Jireh realized this girl was dangerous. She told him not to look at or be attracted to anyone else. Jireh knew that if he married her, he'd be stuck with a royal life he didn't want. He asked her for a favor, which made her excited, saying she would do anything. He asked for the transformation ring he had given her back. Rafine was confused. Wasn't that their engagement ring? Jireh muttered to himself that he never meant it that way. Feeling backed into a corner, he gently pushed her onto the bed, saying that they'd always be together so the ring wasn't needed anymore. He grabbed her hand to take it off. Rafine, deeply embarrassed, agreed. After getting the ring, Jireh said he needed to use the restroom. Rafine offered to go with him, but he declined, saying that was weird. She responded that they should bear everything to each other now. Jireh insisted they take things slowly. Rafine agreed, saying that they'd be together from now on. Jireh left, quickly closed the door, and ran. Now was the time to escape. He used the ring to change his hair color and tried to figure out where to go. He considered visiting Shar and thought about how he never asked the nobles and party members what they thought of her snacks. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild, a worker was speaking with Cain, calling his name. Cain apologized and said he was lost in thought. The worker asked if he was sure about his decision. Cain confirmed, saying it was a good thing. She was surprised Cain had requested to be demoted from B rank to D rank, something unheard of. She reminded him that his sword ability qualified him for at least C rank, but Cain insisted. He had recently retaken the entry exam and fought a C rank knight in a mock battle, and he won. Until then, he'd only compared himself to his brothers from the Imperial Guard who always took on high rank missions. Winning made him realize his own strength, and since he was starting fresh, D rank seemed right. Cain was happy. He now shared the same rank as Jireh. Though he couldn't be Jireh's companion just yet, he hoped to become someone useful to him one day. A voice called for him to hurry. The carriage was leaving. These were now his new party members. After the Ital quest, he had apologized around the guild for causing trouble. When he bowed and asked to join a party again, they accepted. The guild worker pointed out that he left out his family name. He was part of the Stoltz family. Cain told her to leave it that way. He was just Cain now. His new life was beginning. At the Demon Lord's castle, a voice complained about someone being late. Kerfs, the skeleton demon from Ital, burst into tears and ran to the Demon Lord, Luna. Luna asked why she looked like that, and told her not to enter her room in that form. Kerfs quickly transformed into her female appearance, explaining that her livestock was almost depleted, and it took a long time to regenerate. Luna asked what happened with the black-haired hero and reminded Karfs to buy sweets from Ital. Karfs instead suggested turning the whole city into an undead city as an offering to the Demon Lord. Luna was horrified. This was the worst outcome. Karfs, misunderstanding her reaction, thought Luna was impressed. Luna wept, lamenting that the hero was fake and she only wanted some candy. She wondered why she was even a Demon Lord. Karfs then showed her a magic ball projection of Jireh. Luna screamed in terror. She remembered him, a devil-like man who had chased her for 3 days and nights before she became the Demon Lord. She feared him deeply. Wanting nothing more than to live in peace, Luna decided she would give up on being a Demon Lord and go on a snack-eating tour. Elsewhere, Lena was in the forest and had finally tracked down Jireh. She admired his strength, convinced that no matter how many times she fought him, he wouldn't break. Laughing like a maniac, she said that the closer she comes to passing away, the more thrilling the battle. Initially, she had taken the escort quest to eliminate Rafine, but now she wanted to eliminate Jireh. She knew she wasn't strong enough yet and would need help. She began searching for someone's location. Jireh, meanwhile, finally arrived in the sorcery kingdom of Magicus Maya, just as Cain, Lena, and even Luna were heading there as well. Jireh's day starts the usual way, with him trying to go back to sleep. Honestly, he wishes every day could be like this. Even though he has been through a lot lately, like getting dragged into the hero's party or being proposed to by a princess, this moment when he can forget everything feels like the best. He shouts out that being lazy is the best. Suddenly, an elf woman pulls the blanket off him and tells him it's time to get up. Things were going too well, and Jireh thinks to himself that so much has happened recently that he never really got any decent rest. He was planning to relax in a cabin outside of town, but Reddy, the hero with the attack mark, showed up and for some reason invited him into her party. Then, during the escort quest to Ital, he ended up fighting a skeleton who claimed to be one of the Demon Lord's heavenly kings. After all that, the fourth princess of the Universia Kingdom suddenly declared that Jireh was her fated person and proposed to him. To escape that chaos, he used the Ring of Transformation to change his hair color to red. Jireh had a connection with someone named Char, whom he'd helped out in the past, so he asked if he could stay with her for a while. He ran all the way to the country of sorcery, Magicosmaya, without resting. It should have taken 12 days by carriage, but he made the trip in just 2. That's why he's still so tired now. Jiraiya asks Char to let him sleep for 3 more hours and tries to lie back down. Char refuses, saying he said the same thing yesterday and then didn't get up at all. She starts shaking him to wake him up while he drifts back to sleep. Jiraiya laughs, saying shaking him like that won't work. He asks if she forgot about his divine blessing of sleep. The shaking is only making him sleepier. Char is surprised and asks if his blessing evolved, and Jiraiya says that his sleep blessing has now become eternal sleep. Char tells him to stop joking around and to get up. Jiraiya finally gets up and admits that the blessing was just a joke. Char Antetman is an elf girl who always plays along with his jokes. Even though she looks like a young girl, she's actually over 500 years old. She might seem weak, but she was once a powerful assassin. When he met her, he was still training to become a hero, but he hunted too much and ended up damaging the ecosystem, which got him marked for assassination. Her assassination attempt had failed, and when Jiraiya was about to eliminate her, she suddenly started crying, saying she never wanted to be an assassin in the first place. So, to calm her down, he gave her some candy. She acted like she had never tasted anything sweet before, and immediately grew attached to Jiraiya. Now, Char runs her own pastry shop called Chartet. Jiraiya places his hand on Char's shoulder, which makes her flustered. She nervously asks what he is doing and says that while she's happy, it's already late and asks him to be gentle. She thought he was going to kiss her, but Jiraiya tells her she just has some bed hair. Embarrassed, Char scolds him for doing things that girls can easily misunderstand, saying it causes problems, then lightly hits him. While they chat, Char mentions that someone with black hair as pretty as an angel stopped by her store asking if she had seen anyone else with black hair. She says she denied it. Jiraiya wonders if it was Rafine, but her hair is white, and she doesn't know he's at Char's place, so it must be someone else. Char lights up, excitedly telling him that her new product is a huge success and thanks him for giving her his opinion on it. Jiraiya brushes it off and says he didn't do much, it was all her, but doesn't tell her that he actually just read about the idea in a book. Char tells him it's fine if he stays with her forever, saying he doesn't need to work at all and she'll handle everything. Jiraiya declines, saying that would make him just a bum and he'd feel bad. He says he wants to work and repay what he owes her. She agrees, but says that since he likes magic tools, she got him a ticket to the 57th sorcery tournament in Magicosmaya, and the prize is a magic tool. She figured he would like it. Jiraiya admits he does want it, but the tournament isn't open to the public. To enter, one needs to belong to an organization or institution and have a recommendation letter, or their adventurer rank or magic power must be A rank. He tells her he doesn't meet any of those qualifications. Char insists it's his ticket and hands it to him. He looks at it and sees his name printed on it. He's shocked that the issuing institution is the Royal Magic Academy and wonders when he became a professor there. Just as he's trying to figure it out, someone speaks up behind him, saying they'll explain everything now. Jiraiya turns and sees a cat monster, who greets him, saying it's been a while. The cat, who is a fairy kin named Cat Sith, and the principal of the Royal Magic Academy, introduces himself as Aldi Audas. Jiraiya asks what Aldi is doing there, and Aldi says he was invited as a guest. Jiraiya turns to Char and asks if it's true, and she confirms she asked Aldi to write the recommendation letter. Jiraiya, clearly shocked, grabs Aldi and tells Char to give them a minute, then closes the door. He demands to know what's going on and why Aldi wrote a recommendation letter for him. Aldi explains that he just did it as a favor to Char. Jiraiya tells him he hates things like this, and Aldi says he thought maybe Jiraiya had changed. Jiraiya tells him to cancel it and insists that he isn't a professor, so he can't be part of the tournament anyway. Aldi responds by saying that as of now, Jiraiya is part of the Royal Academy, so everything should be fine. The tournament is almost here, and there's no problem with the timing. Jiraiya presses him for the real reason, and Aldi says that if Jiraiya ever agreed to stay at the academy for life, they could research his magic power in depth. He looks visibly excited, but Jiraiya rejects the idea, saying he's not interested. Jiraiya says he'll go back and tell Char he's not entering the tournament. Aldi tries to stop him, saying it's just for a short while. Jiraiya remembers the first time he met Aldi, which was 4 years ago when he first arrived in Magicosmaya. During one of his monster hunting trips, he rescued Aldi from an S-rank magical beast. After that, Aldi was amazed by Jirei's magic and begged him to become a professor at the academy. Jirei kept refusing, so they compromised. He became a research assistant. In the beginning, it was easy, just measuring magical power, but eventually, Aldi started asking for hair and nail samples, which crossed a line for Jirei. He got scared and left. Aldi became one of the people on his blacklist, right up there with the women who chased after him. Back in the room, Aldi pats Jirei on the back and says he's glad to see him again. He mentions that after Jirei disappeared, the entire town was searching for a red-haired guy and thought he had died. Jirei remembers that his hair was red at the time, so nobody knows that his actual hair color is black, and he plans to keep it that way. Jirei repeats that he won't be a professor and refuses to do anything that annoying. Aldi tells him it's up to him. They return to the room and Char asks if the conversation is finished. Jirei says he's going to cancel his entry to the tournament. Char immediately starts crying, which catches him off guard. She apologizes and says she didn't think about how he felt, and she regrets being selfish. Jirei tries to calm her down, saying she didn't trouble him. He just didn't want to do it. Char apologizes again and says she doesn't want him to do something he doesn't enjoy. Aldi stares at Jirei and asks what he really wants. Jirei sighs and says that he was just joking and he'll actually enter the tournament. Char lights up and smiles, saying she thought she had made things harder for him. Jirei realizes he really can't handle a crying woman. Aldi congratulates him on becoming a professor and Jirei gets mad at him again. Jirei is relaxing outside, talking about the nice breeze and warm sun, saying this is the best life can offer and that he's glad to be alive. The reason he's lazing around on the academy grounds is because he can't take part in the tournament unless he's affiliated with the academy. Aldi tried to make him a professor, but teaching on such short notice was impossible, so now Jirei works as a janitor. The academy has magic tools installed all over that use clean and mend spells, and his job is simply to provide mana to activate them. These tools usually require about 15 days worth of mana to fully activate, but Jirei finished filling them up yesterday, so today he's just enjoying some well-earned laziness. He says he's lucky he doesn't have to attend lectures and still gets paid just for sleeping. Just then, he hears someone yelling about having to attend lectures. Looking over, he sees an old man trying to talk to a group of kids. One of the students tells the man off, saying they're not interested in his lectures and to go somewhere else. Jirei realizes they're academy students skipping their lessons. He grumbles to himself that he was having such a nice nap and decides to tell them to go slack off somewhere else. One of the boys sits on a bench in front of Jirei, saying he can finally concentrate now. Jirei wonders what he means. The boy suddenly yells out, asking who brought the book because it's way too hard. A girl from the group tells him he was the one carrying the white magic book and says his name is Ludus. She complains that he dragged them there and calls him stupid. Ludus, clearly offended, asks if she just called him dumb and calls her Senyo. Another kid steps in and says that fighting is bad, trying to calm them down and suggests that maybe their professors should teach them. Ludus argues that the professors only give boring textbook lessons, and he thinks he'll make better progress studying on his own. One of the other kids mentions that even if they ask their fathers or other relatives for help, they'd be rejected. Jirei, watching from nearby, had assumed they were just going to mess around, but it turns out they're seriously trying to study. He thinks maybe they've got some real goals, which is good. Ludus suddenly yells that he doesn't understand anything in the book and wishes there were someone who knows magic but isn't a professor to help them. Jirei hears that but thinks it's none of his business. Ludus then decides to just try the spell and says that even if he fails, it should be fine. One of the kids tries to stop him, but Ludus insists and starts casting a spell. He thinks he's figured it out and uses high heel on himself, thinking it worked, until his arm suddenly falls off. He screams in terror. The others also panic, and Jirei jumps up, yelling at them to stop what they're doing. He thinks about how using healing magic on a healthy body without understanding its effects can cause problems. In this case, the mana had no target, so it ended up damaging his cells instead. Jirei quickly uses high heel on Ludus to fix the damage. Senyo calls Ludus an idiot and tells the others to go find a teacher. They look over and realize Ludas's arm is fine now and ask what just happened. One of them says it looked like magic was used, wondering who did it. Jirei quickly lies back down on the ground, hoping they don't notice it was him. If they find out, they'll ask him to teach them, and that's way too much effort. The next day, Ludus shows up and tells Jirei that he'll defeat him and make him teach them magic. Seino wonders if the person with strange eyes who helped them yesterday was really him, saying he doesn't look strong at all. Ludus is confident, saying he'll win easily. Jirei sighs. It turns out that after the incident with Ludus's arm, the students went to Aldi and explained what had happened. Aldi knew Jirei was the only one capable of healing like that, and suggested they ask him to teach them. Jirei initially refused, but agreed to it under certain conditions. He tells the students that if they can land even a single hit on him in 3 minutes, he'll teach them magic. If they fail, they have to leave him alone. Ludus calls him an old man, which annoys Jirei, who tells him he's only 18. The kids are shocked, thinking he was at least 26 and that he aged too fast. Ludus volunteers to go first, but Jirei says it'll be too easy that way and insists that they all attack together. Ludus thinks Jirei is underestimating them and casts Vinto Ignis, a powerful fire spell, but Jirei takes the hit with no damage. They're surprised he's totally fine. Jirei realizes that was pretty high-level magic. The kids then try using a combination spell, linking several elemental spells into one, a complicated and difficult thing to pull off. Before they can finish, Jirei uses spell Interrupt to stop them and says they're moving too slowly. He figures the duel is basically over now, but then Ludus laughs. Jirei senses someone behind him and turns just in time to block an attack. He realizes they were using the combination spell as a distraction so another student could sneak in a hit. He admits they were using their heads, but then announces that time's up, 3 minutes have passed. The kids are disappointed and say it was too much for them. Jirei asks why they want to learn magic in the first place. They explain that even though they're all from noble families and hold high positions in society, they want to be adventurers and explore the world. They don't want to be used for political marriages or as second choices for family inheritance. Since they all have similar goals, they decided to form a party and learn magic to support each other. Jirei feels a little bad for asking. He tells them he'll teach them, just a little. The kids are thrilled, but Jirei says he's not doing it for them. He just doesn't want to see them go out adventuring with no skills and end up getting themselves killed. They excitedly call him teacher and start asking questions. One wants to know how he canceled their spells, and another begs to learn healing magic. Jirei tells them to speak one at a time and to stop calling him teacher. If they want to learn from him, they need to keep quiet. Jirei explains something to the students and asks if they understand, but they say they don't and ask him to go into more detail. He already regrets deciding to teach them and thinks that being a professor is way too much of a hassle. He tells Ludus that he wants to learn the basics of why Jirei didn't get injured during their fight, which Ludus agrees to. Jirei explains that the output of his body reinforcement magic was simply stronger than Ludus's attack, so it cancelled the damage. He adds that the result could change depending on magic resistance or attribute compatibility, but in the end, stronger magic always wins. Ludus argues that body reinforcement is beginner-level magic and asks why his advanced-level spell still failed. Jirei responds that Ludus is too focused on chanting and that magic used to be much freer in the past. To demonstrate, Jirei casts Fireball outside without chanting, which shocks Ludus. Jirei says that people wrongly assume beginner magic is weak, but with high mana output, even basic spells can be powerful enough to counter advanced ones. He wraps up the class there, but afterwards Seino calls out to him. Jirei says he won't answer questions outside of class, but she brings up the giant crater left in the ground from his fireball demonstration. Jirei tries to excuse it, but it turns into a major incident and he ends up having to pay the school 30 million rien. Since he's broke, he has no choice but to win the magic tournament and use the prize money to cover the cost. Still, trying to win sounds way too annoying to him, and now he's just hungry. He yells out that he wants food, and wonders if there's a place where money flows endlessly. Someone nearby, sitting on a bench and reading a book, tells him to be quiet. He apologizes and notices it's Eve. She asks if he's trying to change his image, and he jokes if it's about his hair color, asking if it suits him. She bluntly says it doesn't. She asks what he's doing here, and he explains that he's working at the academy until the magic tournament is over. Then he asks what happened to her and the hero's party. Did they kick her out? Eve says she graduated from the academy and was called back by the principal to teach white magic. Jirei cringes and says that sounds awful, thinking to himself that Aldi always turns people he likes into professors. He then asks about Reiti and Lena. Eve says Reiti was summoned to Granjero to fight monsters, and Lena disappeared after leaving the registry. Jirei is relieved to hear that, thinking that as long as he avoids dangerous places, he won't run into Riti. Still, he thinks being a hero sucks. He also figures Lena must have been the one who tried to eliminate the princess, though he has no proof. Eve then tells him that Universia's princess asked if she knew where he went, and asks if he did something. Jirei starts sweating, insists he didn't do anything, and says he doesn't remember. When she presses further, he tries to change the subject, asking her not to tell anyone where he is. She raises her hand like she's requesting a bribe. Jirei pulls out his coin pouch and gives it to her as a gift, but Eve says she was just joking and won't say anything because it would be too much trouble. Jirei claims he knew she was joking and tries to act smug, but Eve pretends to change her mind and threatens to tell. He quickly apologizes, and she laughs and tells him to stop acting like that. Jirei asks her to promise she won't say anything, and she tells him to stop talking to her. He then asks if he can sit beside her since he always eats lunch there alone. She says she was there first and tells him to go somewhere else if he doesn't like it, but he sits next to her anyway and starts eating. The silence is awkward, and Jirei notices she stopped reading. He also notices she looks very thin and probably doesn't eat much, but then she suddenly pulls out a huge box and starts eating fast, surprising him. He thinks she must have a strong stomach. She notices him staring and tells him to stop looking. He apologizes, but she keeps eating. She tells him again not to stare, and things get awkward again. There's still time left for lunch, but he doesn't want to move, so he takes out a pair of boots from his storage and distracts himself by working on them. He wonders how to maintain them properly again, even though he was the one who made them. Eve notices and asks if those are wind boots, and he confirms that they are. She quickly leans in close and explains that he needs to inject mana into the crystals to activate them properly for maintenance. If he doesn't, they'll break. Jirei thanks her and says she's really smart, and asks if she's a magic tool fanatic too. She asks the same of him, and they shake hands, bonding over their shared obsession. Jirei mentions the hero's birthday festival is coming up and asks if she applied to attend the artifact show. He says he applies every year but never gets accepted, then dramatically cries about it. The festival is held in Magicosmaya to honor heroes, and since the original hero had red hair, everyone wears red wigs for the celebration and various events are held. Eve smugly pulls out a pair of tickets from her bag and shows them to him. Jirei's stunned and asks how she got them, and she says she knows the organizer, so they gave them to her. Jirei accuses her of getting them through shady means and says she's putting all Magic Tool fans to shame. Still, he desperately wants to go, and his body practically begs her for a ticket. She points out that his words and actions don't match, but says she doesn't mind giving him one. Jirei gets excited and reaches for the tickets, but Eve pulls them back and says she wants something in return. Jirei says he'll do anything, and she tells him she wants him to go shopping with her, which catches him completely off guard. She says she wants to buy clothes and reminds him that she is still a girl and cares about fashion. Jirei says it's not that surprising, although he never thought about it. Eve adds that this is just for Rei to see who the person she loves is, and at this point, it has to be Jirei. He asks if she is really giving him the tickets and if she was planning to go with him. Eve says she was, but doesn't think she can go this year. Jirei feels like there's more going on behind that, but just asks if she's okay with him just going shopping with her after class. Eve agrees, but says he has to pay for everything she picks out. Jirei hesitates, knowing he has no money right now, but also realizing this is a rare chance to get those high-demand tickets, so he agrees. Just not yet. Eve decides they'll go shopping after the tournament and walks away. Jirei wonders what to do since he's short on money, owes Aldi, and may not even be able to cover everything with the tournament prize alone. Low-ranking missions won't help in time, and though he thinks about borrowing from Char, he quickly decides not to rely on her. While walking near Char's store, he notices two people standing behind it, which seems strange because the shop should be closed. He moves closer and hears Carfez shout that Luna is almost there. Luna hits her in the head and tells her not to be so loud. Jirei watches as Luna reaches the open window of the store. They're sneaking in even though they look human. Carfez offers to break the wall instead, but Luna scolds her, saying she already told her not to hurt any humans. Jirei suddenly speaks, startling Luna. She spins around, blurts out that she isn't a thief, and then sees it's Jirei. She calls him a demon and panics, falling to the ground and screaming as she scoots away. Carfez tries to calm her down, saying Jirei has cloudy eyes and doesn't have black hair, so he can't be a demon. Luna takes another look and stands up, and Jirei asks what they're doing. He says they opened the window and asks if they have something to say. Luna claims she forgot to close the window and will do it now. He asks if they're employees, and Luna tries to cover it by saying she works there, but Jirei knows the manager and has never seen her before, which makes Luna panic. Karfs suddenly declares that Luna is the demon lord who will one day rule the world. Luna tries to stop her, reminding her not to call her demon lord and to just use her name. Jirei starts to wonder if she really is a demon lord or if they're just role-playing. Since Luna has torn clothes and a pretty face, he figures they might be fallen noble daughters. Thinking they seem miserable, he tells them to wait a moment, goes into the shop, and comes back with snacks. He offers them the sweets, and tells them to head home since their parents must be worried. Luna asks if she can really have them, and becomes happy. Jirei wonders if he should tell Char later, but remembers she once said he could take sweets for free and even gave him a spare key for the back door. Luna says he's a kind person and offers to pay him, but he refuses and tells her not to steal again. She becomes emotional and says she just wanted to eat the sweets once before dying. She had lined up for them several times, but never won the lottery, and eventually lost her wallet and sold her clothes, so she decided to try stealing. Jirei realizes they've had a tough time. Luna says maybe there are good humans out there after all, but Karfes angrily argues that no human should win the demon lord's favor. Luna quickly silences her again. Before leaving, Luna says she owes Jirei for the snacks and promises to remember this for the rest of her life. Jirei watches them go and thinks they were weird, then suddenly remembers he needs money. He considers how big the magic tournament is and wonders if he could bet on himself. He runs after Luna and Karfes, scaring them, and says that they owe him a debt and need to pay him back. They have no idea what he's talking about. The next day, Char talks about how magic is used everywhere. Magic brooms, wagons pulled by magical beasts, and even spirits that gather because of the strong magical energy in the city. She points out a nearby yatai stand selling hero-shaped manju and says she wants to eat some, though there's a long line. Jirei tells her to go ahead, but he needs to get to the reception desk for the tournament. Char refuses and says she wants to go with him. The tournament is about to start, and Jirei thinks about the kinds of opponents he might face. He reminds himself that he'll do whatever it takes to win the money. The worker at the reception desk for the tournament tells Jirei that he is officially listed as a participant in the 57th Magicosmaya Magic Tournament. She then asks for his entry ticket and hands him a form to fill out. Jirei feels completely trapped because he does not have any money and honestly has no desire to participate in the tournament at all. However, since he needs to make money somehow, he knows this is his only choice. The worker then asks what name he would like to use during the tournament, and whether he prefers to register with his real name. Immediately, Jirei remembers that Reti and Rafine might find out where he is, so he tells her that using his real name would be a terrible idea, considering there are certain people he absolutely wants to avoid. She advises him to pick a nickname instead. Thinking quickly, he randomly blurts out the name Ray. The worker looks startled and tells him he should not use the name Ray. Jirei is confused and asks why not. The worker appears even more shocked by his reaction and explains that Ray is the name of the legendary hero who saved Magicosmaya. Jirei suddenly remembers that Eve had said the person she liked was also named Ray. Still, he figures Ray must be a pretty common name, so it should not matter too much. To be safe, he settles on the name Reiji instead. The worker confirms his registration under the name Reiji and informs him that the tournament schedule will be announced around noon. Afterwards, she gives him a box, explaining that it is a lottery draw for a random magic tool given to all participants as a prize. Jirei becomes visibly excited and wonders what kind of item he will receive. As he opens the box, he finds out that he pulled the jackpot prize, an SSS rank item known as the Hanamagain glasses. However, to him, it just looks like a ridiculous pair of joke glasses. The worker explains that the glasses were custom-made by Princess Elena, who also happens to be the event's organizer. She encourages Jirei to try them on. Curious, he asks what kind of magical effects the item has. The worker tells him that the glasses have powerful durability enhancements and a self-repair function to keep them from ever breaking. Jirei sighs and says he has no use for such an item. In the end, though, he is forced to accept them anyway, although she tells him that wearing them during the tournament is not mandatory. Suddenly, someone starts shouting at the worker, saying they submitted their application correctly. Ji-rae turns to see what is going on. The worker apologizes and explains that they failed to meet the participation conditions, so they cannot allow them into the tournament. The group protests, pointing out that they traveled all the way there. Ji-rae looks more closely and realizes he recognizes one of the adventurers. It is actually Kane. Kane begins scanning the area, and Ji-rae becomes anxious. Kane thinks for a moment that he has spotted his master, but when he sees the red hair and the weird glasses, he decides he must be mistaken. His party member asks if something is wrong, and Kane explains that his master would never wear something as ridiculous as those glasses. Ji-rae realizes that the glasses are actually useful for hiding his identity and decides to sneak away quickly. However, as he is making his exit, he accidentally bumps into someone. He apologizes and looks up, only to see that it is Lena. She stares at him and asks if they have met before, but Ji-rae nervously denies it and insists that she must be mistaken. Then, without giving her time to reply, he quickly runs off. One of her party members checks if she is okay. They then wish her luck and remind her that if Luna wins the tournament, she will earn a lot of funding for their research. Her master asks if something is bothering her, and Luna says that the person she passed might have been someone she knew, although he had strange glasses and red hair. Still, she says that even if it really was him, she is not strong enough to beat him yet. She vows to challenge him once she has grown stronger. Ji-rae resolves to run away again as soon as the tournament ends. Just then, the announcer declares that the 57th Manga-style magic tournament is officially beginning. He explains the rules to everyone. The matches will begin as knockouts in blocks A through D, and the winners will proceed to a round-robin format. Additionally, the competitive battlefield magic has been activated on the stage, which will ensure that any injuries sustained during the battles will be fully healed afterward. Next, the announcer introduces the event's organizer, Princess Elena, who wishes to deliver a message before the tournament begins. Ji-rae remembers that she is the one who designed the glasses and wonders what kind of person she might be. A projection of the princess appears as the crowd turns their attention to the screen. Elena introduces herself as Elena Tidmid Noblest, the 6th princess of Manga-style. She says that she is honored to take part in the magic tournament and expresses her gratitude to everyone for allowing her to serve as the event's organizer. However, right in the middle of her speech, Elena pauses and suddenly asks everyone to wait a moment. She turns to her maid, Stika, and asks her to read what her cue card says. Apparently, the writing is too difficult for her to understand. Stika apologizes and says it must be tough for Elena. She promises to write the script in a simpler way next time, one that even babies can read. Elena asks if Stika is mocking her, but Stika replies that she is simply telling the truth and proceeds to explain what to say. As everyone waits for her to resume, Elena finally turns back to the crowd and encourages the participants to respect their opponents and compete with noble hearts and spirits. The announcer thanks Elena for her message and moves on to the next part of the program. He announces the participants of the first match in Block A, D-Rank Reiji, recommended by the principal of the Royal Magic Academy, versus last year's winner and clan master of Valiant Warrior, Granluboost. Ji-rae hears Ludas and his friends cheering loudly for him. They shout that he better win and use the prize money to treat them. Looking around, Ji-rae notices Char and even his students in the crowd. He also sees Luna and Karfs nearby, and quietly hopes that everything goes according to his plan. As the match is about to begin, Gran steps onto the stage and tells Ji-rae to surrender. He says there is no way someone like Ji-rae can defeat him. Ji-rae responds that they will never know unless they try. Gran warns him that even if the competitive battlefield heals his injuries, it will not erase the fear he will feel. Ji-rae simply apologizes, stating that he cannot afford to give up and has no choice but to win. Surprised by Ji-rae's determination, Gran admits that he admires his fighting spirit. With that, he announces that he will not hold back, and the battle begins. Gran attacks Ji-rae, but Ji-rae keeps dodging every single strike, which only makes Gran angrier. He shouts at Ji-rae to stop messing around and fight back. He even complains that Ji-rae's face looks too calm, as if he is making fun of him. Before the tournament started, Jirei had actually spoken to Luna and Carfez to ask for a favor. He told them that there was going to be betting going on during the magic tournament, and Luna asked if he wanted them to bet everything on him. Jirei explained that since the rules of the tournament didn't allow participants to place bets, he needed them to do it in his place. If he won, he promised he would give them some of the money too. Luna hesitated, saying it felt like cheating, but Jirei said it wasn't technically breaking any rules, so it should be fine. Then Luna pulled out her coin pouch, saying she wasn't sure if he could really win. After all, that was all the money they had left. Carfez, on the other hand, was confident and said they should just trust him to win. If he didn't, then she would just eliminate him herself. Jirei laughed and said he would put in some money too. He explained that it wasn't about the total amount, but rather about how they placed the bets. He said he already had a plan and started explaining it to them. Back in the match, while dodging Grand's attacks, Jirei quietly mutters to himself that the current odds for his match are 30-1. He knows that if they bet 45,000 rain and he wins, they would get about 1.3 million rain. While that's a lot of money, it's still not enough for what he needs. Grand is the tournament favorite, so the odds will definitely go down after this, and the more he keeps winning, the harder it will get. Grand hears him mumbling and yells at him again, asking what he's whispering about and where all this confidence is coming from. Jirei doesn't answer directly. Instead, he keeps thinking. He asks himself what the odds would be if someone like him, a D-rank adventurer, were to actually make it through his whole block. He figures out that the odds were 2,025.778 times, and if they bet 45,000 rain on that, they would earn about 91.2 million rain. Right after finishing that thought, Jirei suddenly attacks and defeats Grand in one single hit. The announcer shouts in shock, saying it's unbelievable that Reiji just won the match. Later on, Luna, Carfez, and Jirei gather to check the results and look at the massive amount of money they just made. Luna looks at Jirei and says she had no idea he was that strong. She tells him that he won every fight with just one hit. By the end of the second day of the tournament, Jirei had made it through Block A without any trouble. He had kept defeating his opponents instantly using Magic Bullet, ending each match before his opponents could even feel any pain. Everyone started calling him Magic Bullet Reiji, and he ended up being chased by a bunch of reporters. Somehow, he managed to escape through a gap and hide at the inn. Carfs looks at the money and says that with that kind of cash, she can buy Luna all kinds of cute dresses, or maybe she should just build a house where the two of them can live together. Luna gets weirded out and tells her to stop being so intense. Carfs then says they should bet everything they have on the next match. Luna agrees with her, but Jirei tells them that bets are not allowed on the final day of the tournament. Both of them are shocked. Jirei takes his share of the money, and Luna notices that it's less than what they would be getting. She tells him that he fought all the battles, so he should take more. However, Jirei tells her that he wouldn't have been able to pull it off without their help, so what he took is enough. He figures that with 35 million rain, he should be able to pay off his debt to the academy and also take Eve shopping like he promised. Jirei then tells Luna that now they have enough money to buy clothes, sweets, or anything they want. He says they don't have to steal anymore. Luna smiles and says that he's a good person. Carfs gets excited and grabs Luna's shirt, telling her that they should get started right away. Luna yells at her to stop pulling and the two of them leave the inn together. Luna turns back to Jirei and says they're heading out, but she hopes they meet again. She also tells him that if he ever needs help, he should let them know. Jirei waves and says goodbye while thinking about what he should do next. Now, on the last day of the tournament, the round-robin competition for the top 4 finalists begins. Jirei could just drop out now because he already has the money he needed, but the winner of the tournament gets a magic tool as a prize, and he really wants that. He ends up winning both the first and second round of the finals. Lena had been placed in Block B, but she surrendered halfway through her matches, so Jirei was relieved that he didn't have to fight her. His last opponent is the only one tied with him in first place, so this final match will decide who the overall champion is. His opponent turns out to be a girl who looks to be around 16 years old. Jirei heard that she starts all her fights by covering the arena in a black mist, and there are even rumors that some of her opponents don't remember how they lost. As the announcer starts the match, the girl introduces herself to Jirei as Enri. She politely holds out her hand and tells him to be gentle since she's just a young lady. Jirei wonders if all the rumors were false and reaches out to shake her hand, but the moment they touch, a jolt of magic surges through him and he pulls his hand back in surprise. Even though his body-strengthening magic should have protected him, he still felt the shock run straight through his brain. He quickly starts to question what just happened. Enri then smiles and says that it's a shame and surrenders the match because she already knows she cannot beat him. Jirei is stunned. She tells him that if they ever run into each other again, they should have a proper conversation next time, and she walks off the stage. The announcer declares Reiji as the winner of the tournament. Later, Jirei is lying on a sofa, still confused about how everything happened. He says out loud that even though he has no idea why, he still won. At least he's happy because now he has both the prize money and the magic tool. While he's waiting in the room, wondering if anyone is going to come talk to him, someone walks in. It turns out to be Princess Elena. She apologizes for keeping him waiting and introduces herself again. Jirei is shocked to see the princess in person. He jumps up and thanks her for coming to see him. Elena tells him to relax and stop speaking so formally. She walks closer to him and tells him not to worry. Then, to Jirei's shock, she calls him by his real name and suddenly says that she is going to make him her husband. She asks if he's just too happy to speak. Jirei, however, says that he's not happy at all and has no idea what she's even talking about. He just wants his prize money and the magic tools, since he's tired and wants to go home. Elena replies that he doesn't have to be shy, but Jirei flat out refuses to marry her, which leaves her shocked. She asks him why he's rejecting her and reminds him that she's a beautiful girl. Jirei admits that she's not wrong about being pretty, but he says that's not a reason for him to marry her. He doesn't want to tie the knot with someone just because of a pretty face, especially when they've only just met. Elena, unfazed, says that they can always get to know each other after the wedding. Jirei argues that there's nothing in it for him. Then Elena strikes a pose, shows off her chest, and says the benefit is that he'll get to enjoy her body. Jirei glances at her chest and immediately realizes something is off. Because of his love for magic tools, he can instantly tell that something's not natural. He uses his imperial appraisal skill and discovers that she's wearing a magic item called imitation armor to make her chest look bigger. He then points out that she's actually flat. Elena quickly covers herself and yells at him, saying that even if they're small, mocking them is going too far. Stika steps in and tries to calm her down, saying that despite having small melons, Elena is still healthy. To make her point, Stika even shows off her own chest, which she claims is both bigger and real. Elena then turns back to Jirei and says that she understands why he won't marry her, but she still won't give up. Inside the royal palace of Magicosmaya, there's an ongoing battle for the throne among the royal family. Elena's father announced that whoever brings in someone with the most magic power, someone skilled in multiple magic types and strong overall, will become the next ruler. Jirei realizes that Elena only wanted to speak with him because he won the tournament, and she admits that's true. She thinks he might even be able to handle a certain demon. Before she can say more, Stika tells her not to go too far since it's still just a rumor. Jirei starts to get curious about what they're referring to, but Elena just says that right now, Jirei is all she has. Again, he rejects her proposal. Stika explains that Elena truly has no one else. She goes on to say that Elena skipped her lessons for years and can't even use basic spells. At royal events, she always behaves oddly and messes everything up. At one point, Elena planned to spend her entire life alone, wasting her time in the palace. But her father got fed up and threatened to force her into a marriage she didn't want, so she decided to look for someone easier to deal with. Now Stika says Jirei is her only hope. Hearing all these reasons just makes Jirei even more determined not to marry her. Elena tells him that she'll work on her bad habits and asks him to reconsider, but he stays firm, and she finally gives up. When he asks if she really gave up, he also requests the prize money and the magic tool that he earned for winning. Elena says she gave up, then suddenly snaps her fingers and announces that he won't be leaving without paying a price. A group of armed adventurers then walks into the room. Jirei is caught off guard, but says he had already sensed them outside. He figured they were using interference and disguise magic. Elena reveals that they're top-level anti-magic specialists and asks if he still refuses to marry her. If he agrees, she'll help him. Stika gives her a thumbs up and tells her that this might be blackmail, but as long as it's only a threat, it's a good act. Elena starts crying and asks Stika why she said that. Meanwhile, Jirei asks if he can go home now. He figures he's not getting the magic tool after all. Although he didn't want to use it, he activates teleportation to escape. Both Elena and Stika are shocked as he vanishes. Outside, Jirei lies on the ground, saying that the whole thing was disgusting, and now he feels like throwing up. His body is sore all over. Although teleportation is convenient, it's a type of dimensional magic that's hard to master, and it always makes him feel awful. Even though it was just a short distance, it still made him sick. He grumbles that he never gets used to it no matter how often he uses it. He didn't get the prize money either, but he really doesn't want to go back and see Elena again. He decides to just send the bill to Aldi later. As he rests against a nearby tree, a girl approaches him and asks if he's all right. He replies that he just felt a bit nauseous, but he's stunned when he sees her face. She looks just like Rafine. Jirei starts to panic. He wonders if it really is Rafine and whether she's recognized him yet. He gets ready to make a quick getaway, but she shows him a poster of himself and says she's looking for this person. She asks if he's seen anyone like that around. Jirei tells her no and tries to walk away again, but Rafine stops him. She tells him that if he sees that person, he should pass on a message. She says that for the past 9 years, her feelings were out of control. She had only thought about herself and never considered how Jirei felt. She says she's really sorry. She admits she was selfish when she said she wanted him to only love her. Someone like Jirei would obviously have other women around him. However, she still wants to know what it's like to live under the same roof with a woman he's not even married to. Her face takes on a crazed expression. Jirei is taken aback. Rafine asks if he can relay the message, and he agrees. Before she leaves, she congratulates him for winning the Manga-style magic tournament. She tells him he was amazing, and that it confirmed for her that there's only one man she would ever marry. Then, as she excuses herself, she calls him by his real name, Jirei. Looks like her crazy girl instincts already knew exactly who she had been talking to. Jirei starts sweating nervously, unsure what to do or why Rafine is even in Manga-style. After the tournament ended, Princess Elena proposed to him, so he ran away, and right after that, he bumped into Rafine. She clearly recognized him, but still let him go. He begins to wonder how complex a maiden's heart can be. Now he cannot tell whether she is secretly following him, which makes him feel uneasy. Just then, someone speaks to him. Eve asks if something is wrong and whether he wants to back out. Jirei quickly replies that everything is fine. At the moment, he is shopping with Eve. In exchange for this, she'll give him tickets to the artifact show, so all he has to do is make it through the day. Since there are people he wants to avoid, he's using disguise magic, which should be good enough. Eve asks that if he really doesn't want to be found, why not just change his entire face? Jirei responds that doing that throws off his senses and makes him feel strange. He also admits that he likes his face since he's good-looking. Eve says that would be true if only his eyes weren't so cloudy. She then asks if he wants something to cover his face and tells him to wait. She comes back holding a full set of metal armor. Jirei is surprised by how light it feels and asks if it's just a costume. He tells her she didn't need to buy armor and wonders why she chose that of all things. Eve simply says it looks cool, and with that, they begin shopping. Eve picks out a store, and Jirei comments that it looks more normal than he expected. She asks if he thought she would drag him into some expensive boutique. Wearing his armor disguise, he admits he thought she'd make him buy only brand-name stuff, which is why he worked so hard to earn money. Eve says that just because something costs more doesn't mean it's better. She starts trying on dresses and asks for his opinion. She comes out in one and asks what he thinks, and he says it looks good. She changes into another, and again, he says it looks good. She grows frustrated and tells him to give more thoughtful answers. Jirei says he doesn't know anything about fashion and that all the outfits look the same to him. Eve replies that she'll make it more obvious, then tries a new dress. Jirei tells her she looks like a princess. In the next outfit, he says she looks boyish. She tries on a maid outfit and a cat costume, and Jirei says she looks like Aldi. When she appears in a teddy bear costume, he finally says it's cute. Now even more annoyed, Eve asks why he gave boring answers before, but finds the bear costume cute. Jirei begs her to calm down and says he's honestly scared. She asks which outfit suited her best, and he says the first one looked best. She decides to buy that one. He offers to buy all of them, but she tells him she only planned on getting one dress from the beginning. Once they step out of the store, Jirei asks if that's really all she wanted. Eve says she didn't expect much and figured Rei would have said the same thing. Jirei asks if this means the shopping trip is over and wants the tickets, but Eve says she's happy with the dress and now just wants to look around the city. Jirei reminds her they only agreed to shop, but he doesn't mind and holds out his hand. She takes it and the two of them explore the city together. They play around, eat ice cream, and walk while he's still wearing the night costume. Later, Jirei says he's exhausted and Eve apologizes for possibly boring him. He tells her he had plenty of new experiences and that the important thing is whether she had fun. He asks how her day went, and Eve says it was fun. Jirei says that's what matters most, and that people should do what they enjoy. Eve is surprised by his words and thanks him. Jirei asks what they should do next, saying he's hungry and knows a good place to eat. They get up from the bench, and Eve hurts herself a little. Some blood comes out. Jirei moves to cast heal, but Eve stops him, which surprises him. She tells him that licking it is enough and puts her finger in her mouth. Jirei calls her brave. When she pulls her finger out, the wound is completely healed. He didn't feel her use any magic, so he wonders if she used recovery magic without letting him notice. At the restaurant, Eve tells him to sit and rest while she goes to buy the food. He takes off his armor and hears some customers talking nearby. They say the demon appeared again, this time behind a store on Alectorian Road. They say the knights should hurry up and catch them, since only a demon could do something so terrible. One of them says they wish Rei was around again. Jirei frowns and says that all of it sounds disturbing. Eve notices his expression and asks what's wrong. Jirei notices the mountain of food she brought and asks if she really plans to eat all that. She ends up eating most of it, and Jirei thinks even he couldn't have finished that much. After the meal, Eve thanks him for today and hands him the tickets. He thanks her and says that he'll stay with her a little longer and walk her home since it's getting late. Eve says she wants to stop at one more place before heading back. While walking, she notices a bit of food stuck to Jirei's face and grabs it. He says he didn't realize it was there. Eve tells him he's like a child. Jirei defends himself, saying there's no one more mature than him. He isn't picky with food, and even drinks bitter magic enhancers every day. Eve laughs and says he's definitely still a child. Jirei smiles and tells her that she finally laughed and that she looks better that way. Suddenly, Eve starts crying. Jirei becomes worried and asks what's wrong, wondering if dust got in her eyes. He offers her a handkerchief. Eve says she's just a little surprised and explains that he reminds her so much of Rei. His actions and personality are exactly like his. Jirei wonders if maybe he's really similar to Rei in how Rafine saw him. Still, he can't remember ever knowing someone with light blue hair and a blank expression. He asks what kind of person Rei was and whether he was as good-looking as him. Eve says she never actually saw Rei's face. She describes him as amazing, kind, strong, and someone who saved her. He was an important person in her life. Jirei says that if Rei was such a great guy, then he must be a hero by now. Eve shakes her head and says that's not possible. They finally arrive at their destination. Jirei is surprised when he sees where they are. Eve holds a bouquet of flowers in her hands and tells him that Rei has already passed away. Jirei and Eve stand in front of a gravestone, and Jirei asks if this is the hero Rei's grave. Eve confirms it, and Jirei says he doesn't have any words that can ease her pain, but he's willing to listen. That surprises Eve. He tells her that instead of bottling everything up and suffering alone, it's better to let it out. And since he promised to spend the day with her, this is part of it too. Eve smiles and says that Rei and Jirei really are alike. That's exactly what Rei would have said. Then, she starts talking about Rei, sharing memories of the hero she loved. She remembers how he got annoyed when she didn't call him cute, how she got into fashion because of him, and how he had a favorite magic tool. She says that everything she is now is because of him. He gave her hope when she was feeling empty, brought color into her world, and reminded her that life was worth living. She says she loved Rei, but she was too late in realizing it. She never got to tell him how she felt, and now she regrets it. That's why, if she ever gets the chance to see him again, she wants to tell him, so she won't carry more regrets. Jirei gently asks how she plans to do that. He wonders if she wants to reverse life and death using something like the falsehood barrier spell that Karfs used back in Etal. That magic only works if the person died within a few days. Eve says she's not planning to do that. Instead, she's searching for Yggdrasil, the legendary recovery magic said to bring people back to life. It comes from a fairy tale called the World Tree, but unlike regular resurrection spells, it has no time or soul restrictions. Jirei explains that normal resurrection requires the soul to be intact and within 10 days of death. Yggdrasil, on the other hand, ignores those rules. Still, that kind of magic is kept secret by the most powerful people in the White Mage Association. There's no way regular magicians would have access to information about it. He tells her that when he looked into it years ago, even the White Mage Association didn't know much. Still, he asks if she's really going to keep searching. Eve nods and says she has to because it's her only hope. Jirei promises to let her know if he finds anything, and she thanks him. Afterward, Eve says she's heading home and asks if Jirei will walk her back. He agrees with a smile. As they walk, Jirei looks up at the sky and suddenly hears someone yelling. It's Aldi, flying in fast and yelling that something bad has happened. He says the students Jirei had been teaching are missing. Jirei thinks it might just be a misunderstanding, but Aldi insists that they haven't returned to the dorms since yesterday. Aldi explains that the guard who was supposed to be watching them also vanished. He admits that while the students can be a handful, they've never once broken curfew. He's sure something's wrong. Jirei suddenly remembers a rumor going around about someone targeting children and taking out their hearts. He hopes it's not connected. Aldi admits that his detection magic might not be strong enough to find them, so he begs Jirei to help. Jirei sighs and says that he doesn't want to, at least that's what he wants to say. He tells Aldi that he'll help, but only if the academy gives him something in return. Aldi, desperate, agrees through tears. Eve calls Jirei a liar, saying he would have helped even without asking for anything. Then she asks how he plans to find the kids. Jirei activates clairvoyance, surprising both Eve and Aldi. He explains that he never told anyone he could use it since the last time he did. It was in secret. After scanning all of Magicus Maya, he says something's not right. He can't find them. That must mean they're somewhere clairvoyance can't reach. He suspects they're in the other world. Eve asks what to do now, and Jirei says that somewhere in the city there must be a warp leading to the other world. A small one might not show up easily with detection magic, but it's still faster than searching everything manually. He asks Aldi to prepare something. Aldi, panicking, says he'll bring anything, even ancient artifacts. Jirei tells him what he needs: rats native to Magicos Maya. Meanwhile, somewhere deep within the other world, a shadowy figure plays with magic. He silences a screaming voice with a spell and then asks mockingly if the victim needs help. Then, without mercy, he rips out the person's heart. Holding it up, he says it was fun, but not enough. Next, he turns to Jirei's missing students. He smiles, tells them that there's still more fun ahead, kneels before them, and whispers a prayer of thanks to his lord, Gluttony. Eve asks if this house is really the place, because to her, it just looks like a normal house. Aldi replies that it's an empty one, and he can't sense any magic coming from it. Jirei, however, says that the warp to the other world is located right here. Even after using clairvoyance, he couldn't find the academy students who went missing. That's why he asked Aldi to gather rats for him, so he could cast magic on them. By guiding 100,000 rats all over Magicos Maya, he managed to scan the entire city. Eventually, Jirei found the warp that leads to the other world and admits that it was tough. He tells them to take a closer look at the door, which seems slightly out of place. Even Aldi, with his eye for detail, wouldn't normally notice something like this. One of the rats happened to touch it and was teleported. At that moment, Jirei's vision shifted to a cave, so he figures it must be a labyrinth-type otherworld. Aldi immediately suggests that they go inside, but Jirei grabs him and says he'll go alone. He tells Aldi to wait outside. Aldi argues that they should go as a team, especially since he's still the school's principal, even if he's not the most dependable person. Jirei insists that Aldi's magic is more suited for support than combat. He adds that he already used body strengthening on himself, and Aldi's job is to make sure nobody else gets near the warp. Aldi tries to continue protesting, but Jirei cuts him off with a little frustration, telling him that he's useless. Saddened, Aldi accepts it. Jirei then turns to Eve and tells her she shouldn't come in either. However, she grabs his shirt and insists on going with him. Jirei asks if she even listened to what he said, and Eve responds that she can't let him go in alone. She promises not to get in the way and says that if she becomes a burden, he's free to leave her behind. She asks again if she can go, and Jirei agrees, telling her not to leave his side. Grateful, Eve thanks him. Aldi then speaks up again, saying that he's coming too, but Jirei reminds him firmly that someone needs to guard the warp from outside. Together, Jirei and Eve touch the door and step into the other world. Once inside, Eve looks around and asks about the black smoke swirling around them. Jirei explains that it's like a barrier, one that blocks outside magic from working inside. Because of that, he can't rely on the rats anymore. Still, since his vision is linked to the rats, he already knows what lies within. He asks Eve again if she wants to turn back. If she does, now is the time. She answers that she's coming with him, and Jirei tells her not to regret it before reaching out to touch the barrier. As soon as Eve sees what's inside, she freezes in shock. The children are scattered around with holes in their chests. Jirei quietly says that this is why he didn't want her to come. She collapses to the ground, overwhelmed. Jirei then notices the guard who had been protecting the students, now lifeless, along with the students themselves, whose hearts are all missing. He clenches his fists in anger, realizing that they had already passed away by the time the rats found them. He had been too late. Suddenly, he sees a person standing up ahead, holding a bowl filled with hearts. Just in case, Jirei casts concealment magic on himself, as the person hasn't noticed them yet. He tells Eve that the students and guard have already passed, and heal magic won't be enough to bring them back. That's why he's going to use resurrection. Eve gasps and asks if he can really do that. Jirei answers that as long as their souls are still in this world and they want to return, it's possible. He tells her their souls are still present, but because of the way they died, they're starting to fade. Eve asks what she can do to help. Jirei says he needs her to call out to them and keep their spirits alive while he goes to eliminate the one responsible. He makes her promise not to leave the students no matter what happens to him. She agrees and walks over to the area where the students are. He then casts Imperial Barrier to shield Eve and the children. In his mind, Jirei admits that he lied. Those souls wouldn't disappear for at least 3 more days. He just didn't want Eve stepping outside the barrier and getting caught in the upcoming fight. Jirei walks quietly behind the mysterious person and unleashes a magic attack, believing he's ended it quickly. However, the body disappears, revealing it was only a decoy. The real figure appears behind Jirei. The person comments that he wasn't as sad as he thought he would be. Jirei turns around, confused. The mysterious figure says he was having fun and then starts to curse at Jirei, telling him not to come into this place without permission. He prepares to eliminate Jirei. Stunned, Jirei asks how he's still alive, since his body was on the ground moments ago. The man responds that it's all thanks to his lord. Still puzzled, Jirei listens as the man talks about something called event alteration. He adds that Jirei wouldn't understand it anyway. He begins laughing, recalling how people used to bully and mock him. He remembers their faces as they died and says that it was hilarious. Jirei asks if he's talking about the victims of the serial killer and demands to know why he killed the students. They had nothing to do with him. The man replies that he wasn't targeting them, but they wore the same uniforms and were the same age as his bullies. That was enough to trigger him. Jirei begins to prepare a spell and asks why he's doing all this. The man finally admits that he was ordered to summon an evil god, his lord, Gluttony. Out of nowhere, Jirei's arm is sliced clean off. He gasps in shock, and a voice speaks from the shadows. It belongs to a girl who says she didn't think they'd meet again so soon. Jirei turns to face her and sees Enri from the magic tournament. He never expected to find her here, in a place like this. When Eve sees that his arm is missing, she panics and says she'll use high heel, but Jirei yells at her to stay where she is. She tries to protest, but he reminds her that no matter what happens, she has to keep calling out to the students. Eve stops immediately. Jirei tells her that recovery magic won't work right now, and Enri, impressed, asks how he figured that out. She says he's smart because if someone gets eaten by her predation skill, healing magic won't be able to repair the damage. Jirei says that his body strengthening should have blocked most of the attack and asks what exactly she did to him. Enri tells him that predation can only be blocked by a hero or an authority and says she wanted to ask him something if they ever met again. She mentions how it was hard to see clearly during the magic tournament since he was wearing those weird glasses and talks about his black eyes. Before she can go on, the mysterious man walks over, happily holding a bowl filled with hearts, and tells her to look at his collection. He says they should be able to summon the evil god that Gluttony mentioned now, and Enri, surprised, says she had forgotten about that. The man says it's all possible thanks to her because she gave him the chance to take his revenge. Enri smiles and thanks him, then tells him that he can leave now since she no longer needs him. Confused, the man asks why, reminding her that she said she needed him. Enri responds that his role is over. He disappears and she turns back to Jirei, saying they can continue. Jirei asks if they weren't friends. Enri says he was just a stranger who thought she was his master or something. Jirei frowns and says the boy was just a kid, and no matter how much power he had, he wouldn't suddenly go out hurting people without hesitation. He asks Enri what she did to him. She smiles and says she ate all his emotions except for vengeance, and amplified his desire to eliminate people, because, without that, he wouldn't be able to act. Then, she changes the topic, saying she's more interested in Jirei's black eyes. Jirei tells her to shut up. Enri asks if he's angry, then says she's going to use the hearts to summon the evil god. She offers to let him and Eve leave safely if they go now. Jirei says he's not running away. Enri then asks if he's staying to save the kids, and if they meant something to him. She apologizes for what she did. Jirei replies that they weren't important to him. He only taught them magic for a few days. They were just random people who would never matter in his life. Enri tells him that in that case, he can go home, but Jirei responds that she's really starting to make him angry. Enri smiles and says he's clearly furious. She asks if he's going to fight her and wants to know how he plans to do that. Jirei raises his hand to use magic, but suddenly realizes nothing is happening. His magic isn't working. Enri laughs and says he finally noticed. When she devoured his arm earlier, she also consumed his internal magic and the surrounding magical energy. She thanks him for the delicious meal, and Jirei stands there in disbelief. Eve snaps her fingers and says Enri must have eaten it with this. Suddenly, several giant mouths appear behind Enri. She explains that she was chosen by the Gluttony Demon Lord and can use this authority, predation. Jirei looks shaken and asks what she means. He says the current Demon Lord hasn't been born yet and questions what gluttony even is. Enri says she probably shouldn't have mentioned that and tells him not to worry about it. She then explains that there are 7 demon lords: pride, envy, wrath, sloth, greed, gluttony, and lust. A demon lord must defeat the other 6 and take their demonic marks to face off against the heroes. Humans only ever know about the last one standing. Jirei tells her that if she's going to do something, she should hurry up. Enri replies that there's nothing he can do anyway, since he has no magic left, and tries to attack him. Jirei looks panicked, but suddenly a sword appears in his hand and slashes through the monsters surrounding Enri. She looks stunned and asks what kind of sword that is and how it's able to slice through her predation. Normally, anything that touches her predation disappears, but Jirei calmly says he was able to cut through it. He explains that he found this black sword 2 years ago. Whenever he uses it, it makes him feel sluggish. He tried to get rid of it many times, but it always returns. He even tried destroying it, but it's indestructible. He really didn't want to use it. Enri, still shocked, uses another skill, but Jirei cuts it in half too. She says that a sword of that size shouldn't be able to slice through something so massive. Jirei just says he used wind pressure, like anyone else would. Enri says he's strange and questions if he's really even human. She can't figure out how he's able to counter her predation. However, after thinking for a bit, she bursts into laughter. She says that now it all makes sense. With that authority, of course he can resist. No wonder she couldn't find it before. She didn't expect it to appear in a human instead of a demon. She tells him that he doesn't even know how to use it properly yet, but she'll be happy to teach him slowly. Then she says the shocking part. He is the Sloth Demon Lord. Jirei is stunned. No wonder he's always trying to be lazy and avoids doing anything. Enri says that Jirei is sloth and admits she never thought a human could have a demonic mark. She adds that if he really is sloth, then his strength makes sense. She suddenly changes her approach and offers him a deal. She will let him go and asks him to join her gluttony. Jirei considers it, thinking she must be making the offer because she's about to lose. Enri looks startled because that really was her plan all along. She promises him a life of laziness, status, money, women, anything he could want. She asks if that sounds good enough for him. Jirei plays along for a moment, saying it actually sounds like a great deal. Enri smiles and tells him to join her then, but without warning, he raises his sword and slashes at her. He tells her that working under her would be boring and says no to the offer. Enri disappears, and Jirei wonders if that was enough to eliminate her. He remembers how she said she consumed his internal magic, but now he can feel his power and the surrounding magic gradually returning. Still cautious, he uses resurrection on the students to bring them back, also removing the barrier and beginning to heal his own arm. But suddenly, he feels a presence behind him and instinctively attacks it. Though it's invisible, he realizes it's Enri's predation. Confused, he wonders why her skill is still active when she should be gone. He senses another one aiming for Eve, so he throws his sword and destroys it just in time. But a third one strikes him from behind, piercing near his heart. He coughs up blood and collapses. Eve sees it happen and rushes over, casting high heal on him again and again, but nothing works. In a panic, she screams, asking why her magic isn't healing him, and begs him not to die. But Jirei stops breathing. Eve clutches his body and begins crying uncontrollably. As she sobs, a memory plays in her mind. In the past, she had been holding a baby when it suddenly stopped moving. She screamed for her parents, but they only called her a monster. She insisted she didn't do anything. A voice shouts at her not to sleep and calls her number 15. She was imprisoned, and the guard mocked her for still being alive. He called her a demon and told her to hurry up and die. He said it was a waste, that she was cursed with a blessing that prevented death, even though her face was pretty enough to sell for good money. 4 years ago, everything about her was still gray. People called her a demon. She questioned why she was even alive. Her body was bound by a curse known as a blessing. Whenever she was injured, it released black magic that cursed everyone around her with death. Her parents rejected her, labeled her a monster, and abandoned her. She was eventually captured by illegal slavers and forced into a fighting arena. She learned not to trust anyone. Over and over again, her hopes were betrayed. All she wished for now was for everything to end. Then one day, a guard arrived, dragging someone in full knight armor and announcing that this man would share her cell. The guard sneered that a cursed cellmate would suit someone like her, then locked him in with her. The armored man glanced around and asked if there were no blankets or futons, saying the floor was hard and filthy. Eve stayed silent and thought that he wouldn't be here long anyway. The knight lay down, unfazed. The next morning, he greeted her cheerfully, saying he slept well, and asked if it wasn't boring here. He said he'd hate it if he were her, but at least the food came without effort. He asked what they served here, but Eve told him not to talk to her. He promised not to speak again, but said he just wanted to ask one question. Did she have anything she wanted to do? A dream? Even something small she liked or was curious about? He said his own dream was to defeat the demon lord and become a king. Eve simply replied that she had no dreams. The knight said he didn't like being a slave, then told her to come with him. Eve, confused, asked what he meant. The knight summoned a sword with magic and slashed through the jail bars. He smiled and said it was obvious. He was going to destroy the arena. The knight in armor storms through the arena, attacking its guards. One of them shouts, asking what he thinks he's doing. The knight responds that he's the only person left now and asks if the man is the disgusting overseer of this place, the one forcing slaves to fight each other. The overseer demands to know what the knight wants, and the knight answers that he doesn't want anything. He simply hates the idea of slavery. Eve watches as the overseer calls the knight selfish for interfering. The knight argues that enslaving people at will is far more selfish and reminds him that slavery is a crime in this country. The overseer warns him that eliminating him won't change anything, that there are still countless other slave traders out there, and even offers to join forces with the knight to take them down. But the knight refuses and eliminates him, saying he'll destroy it all by himself. Later, the knight frees the slave children in the arena and tells them to follow him. The kids ask if he really saved them, but he tells them not to get the wrong idea. He says he did it for himself. They walk for a while, until he brings them to a mansion. He apologizes, saying he wanted something better, but this was the only place that met his conditions. He asks them to bear with it for now. Once inside, he tells them there's something he needs them to do, which makes the kids nervous. Then he simply says that the place is dirty and needs cleaning. The kids are surprised. Eve narrates that, for some reason, they all ended up living together in the mansion. The first thing the knight did was teach them how to read and write. They were given 3 meals a day and were never ordered around or treated with violence. Over time, the children began to trust him. Even so, the knight never told them his name. Like the slave traders, he simply referred to them as you or hey. Eve reflects that he didn't seem all that different from the kind-looking bad people they'd met before. Months passed. The knight began teaching magic to the children. He had them use a crystal ball to determine their magical affinity. When it was Eve's turn, he said she had talent for recovery magic, which was rare, but he didn't have any textbooks for it. He sighed and said it was a pain, but he would teach her himself. The rest could study using the available books. Eventually, Eve found herself training under him. The knight told her they would practice heal. Normally, he would have her heal him after cutting his own body, but since he couldn't remove his armor, they would have to use her body instead. He handed her a knife and told her not to worry. If she cut too deep, he would heal her. Declaring it useless, Eve slashed her hand deeply, which shocked the knight. A dark magic burst out of the wound. He stared at it, confused. Eve assumed he would call her a monster like everyone else, but instead, the knight grabbed the black magic and tossed it aside, saying it was sticky and disgusting. Eve was stunned. The knight asked why she would do something like that, then used high heel on her. He noticed her expression and asked what was wrong. She asked if he could really touch it, her magic, and he answered that it felt normal to him. She began to cry. The knight grew concerned and asked if it still hurt or if he should heal her again. Eve explained that normally, her blessing would activate when she was injured. It would release black magic that harmed others, weakened them, or even eliminated them. Then, that same power would heal her. But this time, it didn't heal her. It vanished. She realized that her blessing had disappeared and thought, if it's him, maybe he can truly save her. That night, Eve wandered into the knight's room. He was laughing to himself and muttering that it felt good. She noticed his red hair, his helmet was off and sitting on the desk. She wondered who he really was. The knight suddenly noticed her presence and hurried to put his helmet back on, saying he thought it was just the cat. He scolded her for coming in at night and told her to go back to bed. He said he was busy. Eve said she had a request. The knight groaned, saying it was a pain and asking why he should listen. She pleaded, and he reluctantly told her he would after he finished what he was doing. He showed her a magic tool, wind boots, and asked if they looked cool. Eve blinked, confused, and he excitedly explained that they let the wearer fly, though they required a lot of maintenance and couldn't be used often. Watching his enthusiasm, Eve thought he looked like a child. After finishing, he asked what her request was. Eve looked serious and told him to eliminate her. She explained that her blessing didn't work against him, so he should be able to do it. He asked what she meant by blessing. She told him everything. Her curse didn't allow her to die, and her magic hurt others whenever she was injured. She wanted him to end her life, but the knight refused. He said there was no benefit for him and he didn't want to do it. He asked if that was all, then told her to return to her room and get some rest. Eve stopped him. She said if he needed a reason, if he needed some benefit, then there was one. She removed her clothes and offered herself to him, saying he could do whatever he wanted with her body. She says she'll do anything if he agrees to eliminate her. She begs him again, and as he walks over, she flinches, scared of what he might do. But instead, he drapes a sheet over her and tells her to stop messing around. He tells her to get dressed and leave. She insists she's not joking, and repeats that he can use her however he wants, but he cuts her off, saying she's not being funny. He doesn't know what she went through to think this way, but tells her she should start valuing herself. She blinks, unsure of what he means. He explains that she doesn't have to throw her life away and shouldn't stay stuck in the past. She's only seeing what's in front of her. There's so much in the world she hasn't seen. Things like food that makes your cheeks tingle, breathtaking places that move your heart. He asks her if it's really okay to die without ever knowing those things. She tells him not to say stuff he doesn't understand. He says maybe he doesn't know her situation, but it's not like she's going to die right now. He admits he's selfish and thinks of himself as the most important person in the world. That's exactly why he can't stand people who don't even love themselves. Eve gets mad. She tells him her sister died because of her so-called blessing. He stops her, saying he doesn't care about her past and doesn't want to hear it. If she's saying she wants to give up on life because of it, then she's just using it as an excuse to run away. She asks what he means. He tells her that as long as she's alive, she can do anything. If she really hates her life that much, she should throw away everything and start over. What matters most is doing what she wants. Eve says it's impossible. He challenges her, asking if that's just another excuse. She asks what she was supposed to do instead. He admits he doesn't know, and says her life isn't his to decide. He doesn't care whether she lives or dies. He just knows he doesn't like the way she's relying on others, begging to be killed. She snaps, asking what he could possibly know about her. She screams that she didn't want to die, that her family abandoned her. She tried asking for help, but everyone betrayed her. Nobody needs her. All she ever wanted was to live a happy life like everyone else. She starts crying, and the night quietly tells her she doesn't actually want to die. She gasps and insists that she does. She says nobody wants her to live. He asks if nobody includes someone important to her. If strangers don't want her around, that doesn't matter. What's more important is what she wants, and she should do what she wants to do. He says there's at least one thing she must want. Eve shakes her head, saying there's nothing. He tells her that's okay too. She can start looking for one. There's plenty of time. Eve tries again to make an excuse. She says her blessing might hurt someone again. The knight shrugs and says if she hurts someone, she can just heal them. That's what her recovery magic is for. She stares at him, confused. He reminds her she's talented with healing, and there's no reason not to use it. He tells her not to give up before she even tries. Even if her blessing is too strong for healing magic, there are other ways to deal with it, like suppressing it with a spirit contract. She could even try reviving people with Yggdrasil, though he's not sure it actually exists. It might just be a fairy tale. She asks if forming a spirit contract is really possible. He says it's not easy, and there's a risk of dying if it fails. She'd need to find a spirit powerful enough to crush her blessing and have enough magical energy to form the contract in the first place. He asks if she's willing to go through with it. She nods. He tells her they'll start magic training tomorrow. She'll drink a nasty magic enhancer every day. She asks if he's planning to sell the kids. He frowns and says he never said that. She reminds him that he claimed he was only doing all this for himself. He says that's true, but he has no plans to sell anyone. They're not slaves anymore, so there's nothing to sell. She asks about the collars. He explains that suddenly freeing them all would have been dangerous. He didn't want them to die because they didn't know how to live on their own. He planned to remove the collars after giving them some education and life skills, but now he thinks it's about time. He decides to take everyone's collars off tomorrow. After that, they'll be free to either leave or stay. He tells Eve that if she doesn't want to train, she can go, and he'll give her as much money as she needs to live however she likes. Eve looks at him, shocked. She asks why he's doing all this. What's his reason? He says he hates slave traders, and maybe he'll become a hero someday, so this is just for his own satisfaction. She asks why he always wears armor and won't even tell them his name. He says there's someone he doesn't want finding him. She asks if he's on the run, but he denies it. She keeps staring at him, and he finally says his name is Ray. Then he asks for her name. She says she doesn't have one anymore and can't remember. He says that's no good and asks if she wants to name herself. She refuses. So he comes up with a name and asks, "What about Eve?" She's caught off guard. He says it sounds nice and that it's a common name. She pouts, saying that's a terrible reason. He tells her that if she doesn't like it, she can always change it. Then he says it's late, and thanks to her, he's lost his quiet time. He says he's heading to bed now and pushes her out of the room, telling her to get some rest. They'll start intense training tomorrow. Eve goes to her room, lies down on her bed, and whispers her new name to herself again and again. A small smile forms on her face. Ray shatters her collar and tells her that she is free to do whatever she wants. She can even be a TikToker if she wants. And just like he had promised, he took everyone's collars off, also healed everyone's burns and injuries, and freed everyone. The children were crying with joy, but none of them wanted to leave. In the end, everyone wanted to stay, and they grew closer to Ray. Though Eve was taught more recovery magic than others, so she could perform the spirit contract when given the chance. Under Ray's guidance, the training was strict and full of discipline. She even felt like crying, but she was still happy. After all, Ray gave her a new life, and he was the only one who stayed by her side. And that's how the day came, when she had to practice recovery magic on other targets rather than herself. She looks around nervously, and Ray arrives, yawning lazily that he's late, but they should get the show on the road. One little boy comes up to him, complaining why he favors her the most and focuses on her the most. Ray wonders what is he talking about. He doesn't favor anyone. The little boy angrily says that she's a demon, a cursed being, and if he goes near her, Ray realizes that everyone is scared of her. But he corrects the little boy that it's not a curse, but a blessing, and it won't kill them by getting close to her. He wraps his hands around her surprised little face and starts pinching her cheeks. He jokes that he's not dead, or is he? Her blessings don't activate unless she is harmed, so if someone punches her or kicks her, he will get affected. But as long as she lives a normal life, there won't be any problems, and he's just worrying too much. He coldly asks the boy if he's planning on kicking and punching her, doing the same things that the slavers did to them. This is too much for the little boy to bear, and he bows and apologizes, as he was about to do the same thing as the others, and he's the worst. The other children also bow and apologize for avoiding her like the plague. This surprises Eve, and Ray tells everyone that they should accompany her to help her work on recovery magic. They excitedly tag along. She starts practicing, and things go around smoothly. But little Eve is having a crush, wondering why her heart is skipping a beat ever since he touched her. Ray snaps her out of her thoughts, asking her if she's listening. Her face is all red. And does she have a cold? He comes closer to her face, and she looks away shyly, saying that it must be a cold. Ray decides to end the training session for today, and everyone can go back. He also dashes away happily, that he can now take it easy. The little girl, on the other hand, is left feeling confused. She wants to do more, and when she thinks about Ray, her heart can't stop pounding, and it's strange. And ever since then, everyone has started talking to her. After that training session, she could use simple recovery magic, such as minor regeneration and healing. Ray also told her that within a few years, she would have enough magical power for a spiritual contract, and the day is rolled by full of fun. A little girl excitedly tells her to look at the mirror. She looks so cute. She's wearing a little dress, and her friend says that it's fun working with high-class materials, and their teacher will love it. Though Lily is not too enthusiastic about wearing something so girly, but her friend shakes her, saying that she went through so much trouble setting things up. They will be shopping together alone, and she has to look her best. She also teases her that it's true she's been watching their teacher all this time, and she will cheer her on. This is the only girl Eve has opened her heart to. She is Tiz. She asks her if she looks cute. A knock interrupts their little girly time, and Ray wonders if they're done. Eve freezes in place, unable to act in front of her Prince Charming. Tiz tries to be her wingman, telling Ray that he should fall in love with how cute she is. But as Ray is as dense as a block of tofu, he stupidly says that fine feathers make a fine bird, and anyone would look good in a dress that great. This spoils Eve's mood, and she coldly tells Tiz to take off this dress. Tiz tries to cool her, saying that their teacher is saying that she looks cute, and maybe he's joking. But Eve is so angry that her face is wrinkled up like an old lady's, and Ray can't wonder why she's so mad, but he decides to wait for her outside. She ends up going along in her usual clothes, reasoning that it's easier to move in. Ray excitedly says that usually he would tell others to shop for him, but today is different because he can buy magic tools with a discount ticket. Eve wonders about the ticket that Tiz won during a prize drawing at the market, and is it truly that fun? But Ray pays her no heed, and excitedly looks over a few magical items, saying it's the most fun he has ever had, and he will even give her a gift. She is handed a little orb. It is a magical tool to practice magic, and it glows with different colors when filled with magic. She should give it a try. She tries to give it a try, but nothing happens. Ray tells her to pour her magical power inside. Like the Rizzler, he comes up behind her and helps her pour her magic into the orb. She blushes, but before she can react, Ray goes away, trying to spot other discount magical items. Eve wonders if there is no one else he can talk to about magical tools. And Ray agrees, saying that he is so high level there are not many people who can have a conversation on his level. Eve wonders if she should talk about magical tools to make him happy. After all, boys like their toys. He happily tells her that he is done with shopping and they should go. He can't wait to work on them. Eve smiles, looking at him, hopping happily. He's like a child on Christmas Eve. But disaster strikes immediately, as the bag he is using to transport them tears apart, spilling all of his magical items. He starts panicking, cursing not using an item box. He also tells Eve not to look at him. Eve, on the other hand, laughs, and he wonders why is she laughing. She explains it's nice to see him show a few emotions. Ray also tells her that she should laugh more often, but she angrily tells him it's none of her business. But the compliment sticks to her heart, and she asks him if he likes her face. The ever-so-dense Ray tells her that he is not interested. Good try. But the FBI won't be getting him. Eve wonders if he is strange, and the more she thinks about it, the less she knows about Ray. He is just a man who dodges questions, wears armor all the time, and plays with his magical toys. But she still wishes for these days to last forever. All of a sudden, it starts raining, and she looks up in the sky and notices a dark dragon floating around. She looks at the dragon in horror, wondering why is it here. Ray explains that the dragon is not the only one here. There are a lot of monsters appearing, and it seems as if the town's protective barrier has not been activated. The guards rush in to evacuate everyone and instruct everyone to move to safety. The mages arrive, trying to avoid major damage and also deal with the monsters. But none of their spells put a single dent on the dragon. Its skin is as tough as Tanjiro's forehead. They have no idea what to do if the dragon starts attacking. Ray tells Eve to go back home. It should be safe there, and she needs to be careful about the magic and the barrier. She wonders if Ray is going to tag along, but Ray tells her to go. He will join her later, and she needs to listen to him. She looks at her savior with tearful eyes, asking him if he will be back. Ray tells her not to worry, he will be back. He just needs to retrieve something, and she needs to go. She turns to leave, deciding to put her fate in Ray. But there's a certain sense of uneasiness growing in her chest. She realizes that Ray didn't say that he wouldn't fight the dragon. Sure enough, Ray leaps into the air with his boots of flight, unsheathing his sword. And before he can attack, he is bitten by the dragon. But he hits the dragon with a gigantic burst of magic. Everyone looks at him, wondering how can he match a dragon. He is like a hero. But to Eve, he is an injured man, worn out, and fighting tooth and nail to protect this town. Finally, he vanquishes the dragon, like a knight straight out of a fairy tale. But it's far from over as the air vibrates with power, and 2 more dragons arrive. Instead of losing hope, Ray smiles, realizing his job is far from done. Though he is beaten and bruised, he refuses to kneel. The guards tell him that they will evacuate and abandon the town. They need white mages to heal his injuries, but he tells them not to get in his way. It's time to show who's boss. He will be the decider of whether it's impossible or not. Everyone wonders what can he do in his condition. His armor is burned, and he is missing an arm, but he proclaims that he will become a hero, greater than all might. He has a dream to become a hero, who defeats the demon lord, and then becomes the king. He yells that no matter how strong he becomes, he can't become a hero unless the holy mark appears. So it's clear as day what he needs to do to be a hero. The guard wonders what is he on about. But Ray smiles, saying that to be a hero, he just needs to be stronger than anyone else and help others. And he wishes that the ideal hero of a fairy tale is what he wants to be. He rushes into the dragons, refusing to accept defeat, and everyone sees him as a savior from the heavens. He's already more heroic than anyone else in history, a textbook definition of a hero. Everyone looks at him in surprise as he lies next to a couple of dragon corpses. He has won against the dragons all by himself. Eve tries to run towards Ray, but she collapses, and dark energy starts twisting around her. She recalls Ray saying that the power of blessings is weird. It is common for blessings to weaken or disappear. And there might be signs like hearing the voice of a spirit or dream, or feeling as if something is slipping out, and it could be that the blessing might disappear at any moment. The blessing starts swirling towards the dragon. The dragon opens its eyes and unleashes a fireball, but Ray appears in front of her and tanks the blow. The dragon also collapses, and Eve yells, "Why did he protect her? He said that he didn't care about her." But Ray smiles, saying that it's his fault. The mages try to help him, but recovery magic is not working. She looks at him with hurt and sorrowful eyes. But he tells her it's fine. It's not wrong. Eve starts crying, asking him if he will really die. She hasn't finished her training and they still have a lot to do. But that was the last day Ray breathed into this world. He never woke up again. Tiz arrives, telling Eve to eat properly. Everyone is worried, and it might be that the teacher was hard on them to make them independent and not to rely on them. Tiz tells her that she knows that she loves their teacher, but he is not here anymore. Eve finally realizes that she loves Ray, and she starts crying her heart out. Eve arrives next to his tombstone on the day of the Magical Academy entry exam. She tells Ray that she has the highest magical power recorded, and this is all thanks to him. A year has passed since he fell in his battle with the dragon, and she regularly visits his grave. She shares the news that the Hero Festival will start, and it's a festival to honor him. Everyone will dress up with red hair, just like him. She holds 2 tickets, saying that these are ancient artifact shows, and she has applied and worn them. But she can't go this year, as she hasn't found it. But she is sure to visit it someday, to bring him back to life with the power of resurrection. She asks Ray to wait for her. She turns to leave, saying that it would be nice if they could go together next year. After that, she desperately tried to seek out resurrection. At the age of 14, she skipped a few grades and graduated from Harvard School of Magic, and she was recognized for being gifted in recovery magic and was a star student, even adopted by the Duke's family, who were researching water spirits. At the time, her blessing had weakened due to the black magic that had left her body. Wanting to become stronger to find resurrection, she made a contract with a water spirit. Her hair also turned blue, and her eyes turned light blue. She also lost her emotions, unless she felt strongly about something. She also read a lot of books belonging to the Mage Association. She also joined the Heroes Party, trying to find out information, but the information about resurrection was kept under wraps. In the past 4 years, there has not been a single day she has forgotten about him, and in the middle of it all, she met him. At first, she hated him for being stronger than Ray and resembling him as well. When she talked, it felt as if she was talking to Ray. She even ended up putting him in a similar-looking armor as Ray, and this just spells out that she is the worst because, after all, he can't replace Ray. When the students disappeared, he tried to rush into the other world by himself, just like Ray when he lied and went alone. And alas, it has happened again. Nothing has changed, and it is all her fault. She is sorry. She starts crying, and as her tear touches his cheek, he starts coughing lightly and wonders where is he and what is he doing. He remembers fighting and wonders if he won, but he recalls dying. He looks around, wondering if Enri is here, but there are no signs of her presence. She also notices a 10,000 gold coin, but he says that it seems it doesn't matter. He wonders if he is a zombie or something, but he explains that he can come back to life even if he dies, and he is not a ghost or anything. It turns out he can cast magic that allows him to come back to life just after he dies. So if he dies now, he won't be able to come back to life, and he will have to concentrate for a lot of days to cast it again, and while fasting to make matters worse. But Eve expresses her surprise. She has never heard of such magic. But the hero says that he just created this magic, so of course no one knows. That was back when he was 9 years old and he didn't want to die. He explains that it is kind of a dimensional resurrection. He can recover from minor injuries and also use space and time to heal his body after death or retrieve his soul that is left in this world. If the body is healthy before death, it is like rewinding time, but the magic has a few drawbacks. Recovery magic won't work, and memories just before that will also disappear. And if the damage is too severe when he dies, there will be a delay before it is activated, and sometimes his body might be teleported into a DD party. But he sighs in relief, as he can remember everything this time. But Eve can't believe her ears. It seems as if he has died a lot of times. He agrees though he hasn't died recently, but he had died before when he was fighting a dragon. This shocks Eve, and she wonders when it happens. He explains it happened 4 years ago when he was being chased by Aldi, and the last thing he remembers is fighting a dragon and then 2 more appearing, and he can't remember what happened after that, though his body was supposed to be buried. She asks him if he was wearing armor around the time, and he remembers he definitely was. Eve asks him if he remembers a little girl with gray hair, and he recalls someone like that. He used to give her magical enhancers and train her, but she didn't have a name show. He named her, but she probably would have changed it. After all, who wants a random name? He wonders why is she asking all of these questions. But Eve starts crying, really flooding over her body that he is alive. This is her Ray. He starts panicking, wondering what is wrong. Why is she crying? She explains there's someone she likes, and back then she realized that she couldn't tell him, and wanted to be ready the next time she met him. She wanted to convey these feelings, and now she'll say it. She finally lets the cat out of the bag that she loves him. He is a blunt, foul-mouthed man who saved her, and he is also kind and full of love. She asks him if he will go out with her. On the day of the hero's birthday festival, he is enjoying the ancient artifact show. He was supposed to do something, but can't remember. He looks at a demonstration corner for magical tools, and this is the most fun he has ever had. There are magical tools from around the world. Eve says that she definitely loves them. She also tells Ray that she loves him and wants to be with him forever, but he can't wrap his hand around how did this happen. He nervously asks Eve to move away a little, stop staring at him, and look at magical tools instead. Eve looks at him sadly, wondering if she is a bother. He tries to be nice, saying that it's just hard to walk. She accepts it, and once again claims that she loves him. Ray once again tries to act all mysterious, saying that these feelings are all in her head. He was doing everything he did for himself, not trying to help him, but Eve remembers being saved by Ray. And the fact that she loves Ray hasn't changed. But Ray tells her that his name is not Ray, it's Jireh. But Eve still wants to stick to calling him Ray, saying that it's a nickname, and it makes as if they are really close. Jireh finally accepts her request. When Eve confessed her feelings, he just couldn't say no. A week ago, the students of the Magical Academy went missing, and they went to the other world to look for them. That's where they met a boy responsible for being the demon that pulls out hearts. He also defeated Gluttony, named Henry. He died once after defeating the dragons, and then died again defeating Henry and defending Eve. And he's also brought himself back to life with dimensional resurrection. Eve has realized that her knight in shining armor from the past is his alter ego, and she has confessed to him. And after that, all of the students from the Magical Academy who had been unalived have been revived. The other victims and the boy are also back, and he has erased their memories with hypnosis. He has also used teleportation to return to his quarters, isolating himself for a few days to recast dimensional resurrection. Now everything is in place except for Eve, who is madly in love with him. Eve pouts. Jireh has indeed turned her down like a true Sigma, but she will still do what she wants. After all, Ray told her to do what her heart wants. Jireh recalls saying that Eve also reasons that there's no one he likes that way, so it should be fine if it's her. Ray is a bit troubled. He shouldn't have told her that he has no girlfriend, no riz, and no game. Like a man suffering from success, he tells her that's not the issue. He has no intention of getting into a relationship with anyone. Eve tells him that it doesn't need to be a relationship. She just wants to be by her side. Ray tries to cut her off, but he decides to hear her out. She tells him that there are benefits if she stays by his side. She has a lot of magical tools. Ray wonders what is she getting at. She points to a magical tool, saying that they are all her property. She is the adopted daughter of the owner of the ancient artifact show. This confuses Ray, and he asks her why she didn't mention it when she gave him the tickets. She laughs with satisfaction, saying that as long as he stays by her, she will be his magical tool's sugar mommy, and will give him as many tools as he likes. This is too good of an offer to refuse. He starts drooling while hugging a magical tool, though he tries to be brave, saying that he won't be a simp, but his body is betraying him. Eve also tells him that they share the same hobby, so it will be fun talking about magical tools all day. And if it's too much trouble to be together all the time, maybe they can make time one day a week, and he can listen to her little requests that day. Ray wonders if she is a little demon whispering in his ear, but he tries to reason that it's not like they would be lovers or anything, it's like a job. He wonders if it's really for just one day, and she agrees, telling him to sign the contract. He goes through the contract, and it's just a list of requests. To eat breakfast together, hold hands when going out, eat lunch together, talk about magical tools, and eat together, and sleep together. He can't wrap his head around why he has to follow such a strange list, especially the part about sleeping together. He won't give his own magical tool to anyone. He wants to keep his magical sword safe. Eve tells her that it's normal. When it turns out there is a clause that has been cut from the contract, she explains that she is too embarrassed to say it. But if Ray decides to marry her, he will be her first lover, and she'll try her best. Ray decides to pretend this never happened, and Eve smiles, looking at his flustered expression. If he doesn't like anyone, then this is her chance to act, and she will definitely make him fall in love with her. She won't give up. These emotions are too much for Ray, and he tears the contract. He sadly goes away. In the end, he couldn't enjoy the show because of that weird contract. He notices a boy standing away from others in the playground. It's the boy from earlier, the heart killer. Jiraiya realizes that the little boy wants to play with others, and he has gone through so much trouble to erase his memories related to gluttony, how she had amplified his hatred, and now his personality is back to normal. He realizes this is just how gluttony took advantage of the little boy. He comes up to the boy and offers him candy. Didi alert, saying this is for him. The boy wonders if this is a case of stranger danger. He then starts handing the boy a lot of candy, and he nervously says that he can't eat this much. He will get cavities, but Ray tells him that it's not for him to eat alone. He should share it with the other kids and become friends with them. He tells the boy that he's in a hurry and he'll go. He can eat them all alone or throw them away. It's up to him. But the boy realizes that Ray is a kind person and thanks him. But Ray angrily says that he is not an uncle. He is a big bro. The little girl runs off to make friends, and Eve tells Ray that he's so nice. She wants to date him more than ever. He yells in a panic that it's impossible. A 10 by 10 baddie with jugs big enough to sink the Titanic burst into his room asking him to marry her, but she looks around in confusion, wondering where is he. She's sure that he is responsible for solving the demon that pulled out the heart incident, and now she wants to offer her heart to him and win him over for the succession battle. It turns out Ray is holding on to the roof, trying to keep a low profile. He finally manages to lose her and looks at an article about him and his miracle. He sighs in disbelief as he never expected to become someone so important. Whenever he has revived the victims of the incident, he makes sure to erase the memories related to him. However, it turns out some info has remained faintly around the soul. Everyone had said that they were saved by a red-haired person. Now he is trying to go with emo hair, and he also wonders how did Elena know, and it was enough to be chased by refined. He finally decides to leave the country. All of a sudden, he notices a magical tool lying around. He whistles to himself that this is a great find, but he is grabbed by Eve. She smiles, saying that she caught him and he can be easily lured by bait. It's difficult to catch some alone time with him because he is always on the run, and that's why she decided to ask for help. After all, her interests line with a certain hero. Speaking of the little hero, she excitedly tells the teacher that it has been a long time and they want him on her team. Eve explains that they share the same goal. She wants him to join the party, and they want to be with Ray. It makes perfect sense to work together, and Ray should be happy to be surrounded by girls. He wonders what the hell. A voice tells the two of them to step away from him. All of a sudden they move away and wonder why are their bodies working in this way. A mysterious figure tells Ray to follow her, saying that it's dangerous. She used soundproofing magic and a lot of magic in this room, and they won't be disturbed unless something big happens, so he can rest easy. Ray finally lies on his back. Now he can finally breathe easily, but he realizes that there is something wrong going on. Now that he thinks about it, the mysterious girl shatters her pendant. It is a magical transforming tool, and she suddenly turns into Raphael, saying that it is his fault, and she has been waiting for a long time, but he never came for her. She pins him to the bed and starts breathing heavily, inhaling his scent, and she always wanted to do it. It turns out that he's a shy little noob who always runs away when women throw themselves at him, but he can be honest with her. Mommy will take care of him. He wonders what is this all about, as she undresses herself, saying that if the child belongs to them, it is sure to turn out cute and her father will be happy, so they should have plenty of kids. Ray tells her not to tease him like that, but why can't he escape? She tells him that the first time is always the scariest, but she will do her best, and while he counts the stars on the ceiling, it will be done before he knows it. Ray closes his eyes in desperation, asking anyone to help him. He's being attacked. He uses teleportation and is teleported to a garden. He kneels over, is about to puke, and wonders where is he. He looks at Cain practicing his sword skills and wonders why is he here. Cain excitedly wonders if he saw his swordsmanship. Right now he's been training ever since day one so that he can be a man who can fight alongside his master, but he hasn't improved a lot. And if it's not too much trouble, he wants to ask him for his guidance. Ray is still confused about all of this teleportation magic, and all of a sudden he stops a dagger inches away from his neck. He wonders what is going on. Someone is after his life. He tells the owner of the dagger to come out. He knows she's a murderous little witch, and a little girl with pigtails looks at him saying that this level is not enough to get him, and she needs to get stronger. Ray wonders why is Lena trying to attack him, and she's also the one who attacked Refined the other day. Lena says that he's strong enough that no matter how much she breaks him, he won't break. She laughs sadistically. She has finally found the perfect plaything, and though he underestimates her, she will kill him. She runs away like a little freak, and Kane wonders if his master is in a sticky situation, but his master runs away fearing for his life, wondering how this situation happened. He's supposed to be in his popular guy era. Kane runs after his master wondering where is he going, is part of his training, and if he will accompany him. A weird cat is also after Ray. All of the students want to get a piece of him, and he is a lecturer at the academy and wants to offer him a job. Refine is also after Ray, wanting him to be her baby daddy. Ratty wants to rope him into her party and wants him to sign a contract. Eve wants him to be her sugar baby and have all the little magical toys he wants in exchange for making mommy happy. Ray just wants to avoid trouble and live a life free of worry. He wants to be a D-class adventurer, but everyone misunderstands and admires him. He is a man suffering from success, and this ends now. He yells running from the crowd that he just wants to laze around, and a mysterious mark also appears on him.